Yeah, exactly.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll begin with the approval of the minutes and the town clerk report.
You've got the May report, the May 16th minutes.
I move that we accept the minutes as submitted. And
I have a question about, okay, so it's a Heather question regarding men's salaries versus HMEO. Where's Heather?
Right here.
Oh, there you are. Do we call the guys HMEOs, or do we call them, do they have an official title?
Well, the whole thing with their job duties are that they are HMEOs. However, on our civil service roster for the town, they're rostered as MEOs. So I think in order to bring everything in line and for auditing purposes, we need to get the job classification changed
Okay.
to HMEO, which is what they actually are, and that's why their salary then it's
But
in
for
line with
now,
that.
they're MEOs, like right now?
Right now, right, we only have job classification for MEOs,
Okay.
so they are MEOs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because what I'd like to do is change the word men's to MEOs, so that it's very specific, because there's other guys working there who are not MEOs.
So
Okay?
you don't want it to be the HEM.
No, because she said we
it's
don't,
not that yet.
we're not classified yet for HMEO, so if it's MEO, that's correct. And then the SAM grant is it's capitalized because it's a acronym. It
Did I
stands,
put capital S?
no,
You put capital S, but
It's-
then
it's capitalized,
lowercase
but it's,
s, all
caps.
it's an act, it's S,
Capital,
all
capital,
caps,
capital.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
3 caps.
Okay.
Yeah, it means System for Award Management. I didn't know until I looked at.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I know, I had no idea what it meant. But those are my only,
With those alterations, I move that we accept the minutes as submitted.
I second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks,
Uh,
Judy.
And then I move that we submit the clerk's report as submitted.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Approval of the bills?
Before we approve the bills, I had an issue with one of the bills, which I did not sign, and it's the bill, it's a bank bill, which,
Which is the credit card.
I understand that.
Okay.
But I can't approve that because that money has already been spent. The individuals who provided the services have been paid,
Okay,
okay? So it shouldn't be done that way.
all right.
I don't have any problem with the charges
Right.
at all. I have a problem with how it's documented, and it really can't be done that way.
Okay, so if we have an emergency or we have a,
But this was not an emergency.
oh, okay.
This was not an emergency.
What,
What's the bill?
what is it?
It's the bank statements for the, well, part of it is for the purchase of these.
Well, that's a donation.
I don't care what it is.
Okay.
It can't be accounted for in that
But we
fashion.
approved it.
I understand we
All right.
approved it, but I'm not gonna sign a voucher approving the bank's voucher. There's an individual, it's just not an appropriate, I don't think it's a proper accounting format.
Okay, so
For
how?
this.
So we paid for it, and then
Yeah, we paid
if we
for
were
it, but-
reimbursed for those monies?
Yes, yeah, that's donation.
I understand that. I totally understand that, but that's not how we sign off on bills. That's not a voucher, that's a real voucher.
Okay,
Because it's already, the town has already allocated those funds for it because the bank has paid the merchant who sold us the merchandise, which is all fine and good, but there's an accounting problem with it.
mhm.
That's all. This can go down because 3 people have signed it, so it can go by, but I'm just calling it to your attention.
All right.
That it's a problem in terms of government accounting.
All right.
In my opinion.
Okay,
We can figure it out.
all right.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, with that said, I move that we approve general bills 16,768 through 16,803, highway bill 16,805 through 16,821, and water district bill 2874.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Supervisor Statement. There are a lot of people to thank for their hard work this month, and I don't have enough time to list everybody, so I'm choosing just a few. First of all, our assessors and the Board of Assessment Review, who've been handling the grievances like the pros they are. Boy Scouts, Jacob Henderson and Michael Haig, with their parents and leaders for their work building raised beds for our community garden. You can look out there and see them, and they're fantastic. They're so beautiful. Lisa and Nelson Zayas, who've been distributing food to those in need during times when the food pantry is not open. And Bobby Lee Kaus, who's gotten our ball fields just right for the baseball, t-ball, and soccer players who swarm it nearly every night. He's out there till quite late, and I heard from a couple coaches that the fields were really great. This week, we held our first public meeting for the Comprehensive Plan Review, and I want to also cite the hard work of our Comp Plan Committee for writing the survey, which is available online at the library and various spots all over town, and for hosting BFJ Planning, our consultants on the project. Their commitment has been inspiring already, and we have a summer of work still ahead of us. The survey period ends July 10th, and in the first 10 days, we received over 150 responses. One of the fun facts that came up during the meeting was that Pine Plains has about 31 more people than it did in 2010. So we're having a growth spurt. I want to remind people that we are not rewriting an already beautiful plan. We are tweaking it to bring it up to date and deal with the challenges that have come up since it was written. And if you will remember, this comes via, at least partially via a grant from the Greenway Grants people. This month, the town received a legacy from someone who loved it here, Edward Kinzer. He left us $25,710.60. We can discuss what to do with it later in the meeting, but I'd also love to hear from people as to what they'd like to see it applied to. And we have to accept it, but we'll do that formally. The Solar Committee is almost done with their recommendations to hand to Warren, and they too have done committed, excellent work on this. It's been a real joy to be a part of it. Once we have our law in place, we can start working on trying to attract solar power to our own landfill. If we had community solar out there, people would not have to spend money putting panels on their own roofs, and it would be a pretty great project for the town to take on. And the last person I want to thank this week is Eileen Chiaburri. She's achieved 95% collected taxes for the town. That's pretty unheard of in most of the other towns, and it's just, that's really incredible. So thank you, Eileen. Public comment. All right. So at this point, we need to accept the inheritance from Edward Kinzer and also the AV donation of $3,065.62. And that's just, we just need to sort of formally accept it. So could I have a...
I move we accept the Kinzer donation
And the AV?
and the AV donation as a separate simultaneous acceptance.
I have a question. The AV donation, that's an anonymous donation?
Yes, it is.
I'm wondering how, as a board member, not knowing where that came from causes me some pause.
Well, perhaps I can tell you at executive session.
That would be fine.
Okay.
Perfect.
You could ask then too. Okay. All right.
We still need a
I'll
second.
second the
and
motion of accepting the donation and the money from Edward Kinzer.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
I don't have any budget amendments, I thought I would, but what they are generally speaking, what we're generally doing with those right now is getting the banner money for the rec into the right place so that they can use it to fix the ball fields. So I think we did a lot of that work last time. I'm just going to keep it here because we're probably going to have to do it about once a month for a while.
I have one question. The line of playgrounds recreation that got a large increase in its amount.
That is the money that the fund balance we put in there for septic.
Oh,
payment.
fine.
Yeah, that's
Perfect.
Dougie.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay, we're right at the Twin Islands Lake Association report.
Sure. Hey Warren, how are you? Holly Bart, nice to see you. I'm gonna have to put my back to you. I hope that's okay. You wanna move?
I'll move, you want me to move over here?
Yeah, then I don't feel so bad. My backside in your face. Okay, thank you so much. Good evening, Supervisor Cloud and members of the board. My name is Holly Bart, and I am president of the Twin Island Lake Association. I'm joined this evening by my fellow board members, Kevin Walsh, Ark Latt, and Vivian Walsh. David DeLucia is in a wedding and having a great time in Ireland, so he sends his regrets. The board is here on behalf of the members of Twin Island Lake Association, which currently number 34 individuals, many of whom are here this evening. Would the members please raise your hands so the town board members can see the support? Thank you. As to those who could not make it, I assure you that we are here with their full support. So let us begin by telling you who we are and why we're here. We call it Twyla. Twyla was formed in 2018 to give lake residents a voice and a structure for addressing the health of the lake. Our mission is the preservation and improvement of the water quality, natural habitat, general environmental conditions of Twin Island Lake, its shores, and its watershed for the benefit of its members, the public at large, and future generations. To that end, we retained Princeton Hydro, a highly respected lake management firm, to conduct a comprehensive assessment of our lake. This was done in 2018. And here is an overview of what they found. The water quality of Twin Island Lake, known to some of you as Mud Pond, is excellent. But that excellence is marred by the explosive growth of aquatic vegetation. This includes two forms of aquatic vegetation. One is what is called nuisance vegetation. It is not on the state list of most invasive species, but it is considered to take over bodies of water. And those include bladderwort and white-flowered lilies. They are non-native. The second thing that we have in the lake are three species of what are called aquatic invasive species. They are Eurasia milfoil, water chestnut, and curly-leaf pondweed. These three plants are on the state's top 10 most aggressive invasive species. Princeton Hydro reached several conclusions in its report. The first one was that the recent lowering of the lake level has exacerbated the rampant spread of unwanted vegetation. The second thing they've concluded, is that draining the lake through the culvert at such volumes increases the risk that aquatic invasive species will spread downstream to Stissing Lake and beyond. In fact, Wappingers Creek Intermunicipal Watershed Council is so concerned about this that we went and met with them, and they acknowledged the risk, but they also gave us a letter of support for our efforts to try to address the health of the lake. So has Cornell Cooperative, as has the village of Wappingers Falls, which is at the opposite end of the watershed. The next thing that the Princeton Hydro report
which, by the way, is available on our website for any of you. It's quite long, it's got lots of pictures, so it doesn't print out easily, but please go on our website, you're welcome to download a copy. The third thing they concluded, that the lower lake level had rendered last year alone more than 60% of the lake completely unusable for recreational activities. Undoubtedly, this has made the lake a real eyesore, even though this is a view shed that the town sought to protect as part of its recent zoning. This is what the lake looked like last year at the end of August. And you see that big brown thing in the middle of the picture? That's actually dirt. So you could actually walk out there in the muck and stand on that dirt. And in fact, many of the herons perched on that particular hump. Here's another view looking at the Big Island. Again, you can see the coverage, and you see the sort of light tan strips. That's where the vegetation has literally grown out of the water because there was so little water. The other thing that Princeton Hydro has concluded is that the extent of the vegetation in the lake has not only stressed the wetland vegetation, but it has also stressed the fish. The fish are losing the oxygen because there's too much vegetative matter in there. And additionally, the fish, when they can't get to the sunlight, it inhibits their growth, and in time, most of the fish will die unless we treat it. Speaking of death, Princeton Hydro has advised the board of Twyla that if nothing is done, the lake will be dead in 4 to 5 years. But truly, it doesn't have to be this way. Because there is, I meant to say this, that obviously impacts to the view shed, the property values, and the downstream watershed are quite obvious. But there is a simple solution, and Princeton Hydro has recommended the installation of a weir at the culvert at the southern end of the lake to increase the water level to historical levels when the culvert back in the 1996, we think was the date it was changed, went from an 18-inch culvert to a 36-inch culvert. So let us show you what we think this could mean for the lake. This is a picture that we got from Jim and Laura Moriarty, who are in the back. Thank you for coming, guys. This is a photograph from their their lakeside porch in the mid-90s. And this is when the culvert was at 18 inches. This is what it looked, that same view. Do you see the tree? So if I go back, there's the tree, and there it is on the left. That's what it looked like last year. So when the lake got so bad last year, the Twyla members determined that something had to be done, and something had to be done soon to manage the water level. But in order to do that, we needed the expertise of a hydrological firm to design a weir that would do several things. First, restore the water to the historic levels by raising the invert, meaning the bottom of the culvert, and we're going to have a craft project later to show what we mean, to prevent the runoff to preserve the spring runoff for the middle of the summer when there's a drought condition. The weir is designed, however, to keep the water flowing because that's good for the health of the lake and it's good for the health of Stissing Lake to the south. The design we also asked them to come up with was to take into account the highway department's need to maintain the culverts and keep the culverts open and free of detritus that's left there by the beavers. So we looked around and went up to NYSFOLA, which is the New York State Federation of Lakes, and were introduced to Master Consulting. And we have with us tonight Connor McCormick, who is the project engineer for our project, who's going to talk about the weir so he can talk to you about the hydrological aspects of it. Twyla chose Master because of its engineering experience in this area. It has established relationships with the New York State DEC, which is critical when you're dealing with work being done in and around a culvert. And because it's local, it is also very familiar with the Wappingers Creek watershed, of which we sit at the head tide. So with that, I'm going to turn the program over to Connor.
Good evening, members of the board. Again, my name is Connor McCormick. I'm with Mazer Consulting. I'm the project engineer on the project. I have one of our site plan. Do you think you could put
Yeah.
that one to the, so for the people in the back, this is the same plan. I'm just, for the benefit of the board, I have this one facing you. So what the objective is pretty clear. We're trying to raise, or raise the depth of the lake to what historic levels have been. The big issue that we are having is to not raise the lake so much that in a 100-year storm event and these big storms that we're getting, and everyone knows that they're coming more and more frequently now, that it doesn't inundate the lake. What we are trying to do is accomplish this by putting an outlet control structure on the existing pipe that will raise the level of the lake while passing larger storm events. So if we could just walk you through the plan, up here we have Twin Island Lake, we have Beach Road that separates that, and Stissing Lake to the south, or sorry, southwest. Currently there's the 36-inch pipe that's going under Beach Road. If I could show you some of these photos I have. This is when I was out there about a month or so ago. This is me standing on Beach Road, looking at the inlet up there. You can see the beautiful beaver contraption that we have. I'll show the people in the back. So the top left. This picture right here is the inlet that currently exists on the site, this flared end section. So right now as it sits today, that pipe, the bottom of that pipe is what is controlling the level of the lake. From my understanding is that swapping of that culvert dropped the lake those 18 inches. So what we're proposing to do is swap that flared end section with this outlet control structure. It's a simple 4x4 concrete box, and if I could just make it real simple to everyone, got a little arts and crafts projects here. If this is the existing culvert that's going under Beach Road, what we're proposing to do is take this box culvert, put it on here. We would form up this open side around it so it's locking the pipe down into the culvert itself, and that would be, the box itself would be what controls the water level. The pipe, though, would be still what is conveying flow underneath Beach Road, and that is still going to be ultimately what is controlling the amount of flow that can get into Stissing Lake. So we're talking apples to apples as far as flow capacity, but the starting elevation of the lake itself will be higher, that 18 inches. As part of this design, we did do a hydraulic study of the watershed to the drainage point, and found that during the 100-year design event, raising the lake that 18 inches didn't overtop or inundate the road. So as part of that box right there, currently there is wire mesh and PVC piping, and it's somewhat effective, but what we're proposing to do is to put this triangular trash rack for the people in the back. You can sort of see it's a little fuzzy right there. On top of that structure, so that when the water level does rise during those storm events, any debris, logs will be floated up on top of that. And I know maintenance is a concern for the town as well. That can be easily just scraped off with a rake or something like that, as opposed to some of the dredging or what is that has to happen now. Again, it's a simple precast structure that's going to be slid under the existing culvert. It's not going to have any impact on the road. They're not going to have to rip up the road at all. It's a pretty simple solution for what is really could, if it's not done, could result in the death of the lake. The only other major concern is it was brought to my attention that there was some wildlife in the area, and there was a need to not have running water sound. So what we propose to do is we have a little concrete trough that is just going to help convey the water, direct it right into that culvert so it's not dropping the 18 inches into the box itself.
Connor, maybe this would be a great time for Kevin Walsh to explain what you're alluding to, because I know it's been a concern that's been raised at the board meetings in the past.
Yeah, it is a good concern. I think the first thing I'd like to say is why beaver even dam anything up in the first place? And what's important for them is to be able to actually transport their food. So if they have a lot of debris and stuff in the way, they just raise the water level, and now they can drag their branches and logs wherever they want to go. Also in the winter, they want to be able to store their food underwater, and the deeper the water is, the more food they can store, and it increases the chances of their survival. So they build dams. But when the water level is high, they tend to leave it alone. So in the past, there have been times when there have been cages around the culvert, and the beaver built a weir. They actually took that square culvert cage that you saw and built mud and sticks around it, and it raised the water of the lake, and once it was there, they tended to leave it alone. So there you can see a perfect example of a beaver weir. It's a little sloppy, and I don't think it presents some of the design advantages that we have here with the Mazer design. But anyway, that's the main thing. And of course, the sound of running water is a big thing for beaver. Wherever they hear it, they want to stop it. And this particular design that we have here really minimizes the sound of running water. So I think it's a boon for us in a couple of ways. It'll raise the level. The beaver will tend not to want to build there. It's easy to clear the top of it off when they do, and they'll do less of it because there's less sound of water. So.
And Kevin and Connor, so what Master's proposing is to eliminate what we call the beaver contraption.
Yeah, we are proposing to have this removed because the trash rack and the way it's designed is going to help eliminate some of those, maintenance items. There's also a trash rack at the bottom, which, as it sits now, the grading on it is a little tight. So when some of the smaller items, sticks and leaves and such, get through, it tends to. Yeah, I do have a photo of that. You can see the grading. This is the downstream side. So you can see right here, it actually ended up damming up, but not where you want it. You don't want that at the bottom where it's going to plug up the pipe and where it can be, an issue hydraulically.
In other words, once the water spills over the weir down the sluice, we want it going out to Stissing Lake.
Correct.
And the beaver will not crawl in backwards up the pipe. So there's really no reason to have the output covered like that.
So I think the main thing to summarize it, it addresses a lot of the lake's concerns, which is the vegetation by increasing the depth of the water in the lake itself. It's addressing the concerns hydraulically of inundating the roadway. I think we're really trying to get everyone's needs met with this design, and I think we've accomplished that. So, members of the board have any questions? I'd be happy to answer.
You guys, and I think you guys already did, but by raising the water level back to the pre-1996 levels, are there any property owners that are going to be impacted, or has there been development since then that has happened at a lower elevation?
So one of the things that we asked Princeton Hydro to do was to help us understand what we always thought was lore in the town, but couldn't prove it, that some guy either up on Birch and then he was over on Stissing Avenue and then suddenly he was by the ball field, and the last place we heard where he was actually up on Poplar. So he's kind of moved around, but it's actually still the same guy. And so we asked Princeton Hydro to take a look at that, because the lore is whenever our lake gets high, this person's basement would flood. And there's a difference between correlation and causation. In other words, the correlation is when the water's high and our lake is high, the water's just high. So whatever his water table is, it is also high. But it's not causation, and we were able to show that in the Princeton Hydro study, because what they did was they took the water table for Twin Island Lake, put that on one page, and I'm sorry I didn't bring that, but they put that on one page, and then the next page they showed the water level
which actually the person, whether he's on birch, stissing, poplar, or what was the other one? Fairview, Farview. It doesn't matter, he is actually in the watershed of Stissing Lake, not Twin Island Lake. So I think we completely addressed that. And, yeah, go
Those
ahead, Kevin.
documents come from Soil and Water at the Farm and Home Center.
Yes.
So you
they're-
can actually get that information from them, and it shows where the water tables are for the associated lakes.
And that's also in the Princeton Hydro report that's appended to our website, so you should feel free to do that. And if anyone here doesn't have access to a computer or doesn't have a printer, please come up to any one of the board members and we'll be happy to print out a copy for you so that you have it if you'd like to read it. It's actually quite comprehensive and quite well done, much like the master design. So just to summarize the benefits of their design, it's a simple fix for a complex problem. It's relatively impact when you stop to consider the high impact potential for eradicating or at least controlling aquatic invasive species and also nuisance plants. It will also help us restore the view shed, which is so important. And finally, it will enable those of us who love to use the lake, which includes many members from the public. We have guys that come all the way from Pleasant Valley, from Red Hook. They regularly fish the lake. It will allow us to have, full recreational access like we always had in the past. It will also enable us to eliminate the unsightly and often ineffective beaver deterrent device. And as Kevin said, it's going to eliminate the need for any beaver maintenance because the water is where it historically was and where their huts were built. And so they don't need to be messing around with the beaver. We also asked that the design take into account the highway superintendent's maintenance because we really wanted to make this easy for you guys. And the way it works is, let me just go back to it. So, Sarah, may I just step in front of you? I'm very sorry. So if you see this piece, this is a side view of the weir. And this piece is actually an open grate. The holes are 4 by 4 inches, which means leaves and little acorns will go flowing through. But what won't go through are the big things that clog up the culvert. So sticks and things, actually with the force of the water, will get pushed up on this platform. And so it really, what has been a 2-hour job for the highway guys ought to be like a 10-minute job because they can take a metal rake, pull the detritus up, stick it in their truck or put it on the side, whatever they're going to do with it, and it should make that a whole lot easier. Thank you, Tara. So let me go back to my benefits page.
I've got a question over here too, Lily.
Yeah, we're going to open it up for questions. Help.
You gotta hit escape.
What?
Hit escape.
No, I want to go forward, but
Yeah, hit
it's.
escape.
I don't,
You got the browser on the bottom right.
Hit escape
Okay.
and then
all good, thank you. Next time I'll listen.
I didn't say escape, I said hit escape.
Oh, okay, boy, would I love to escape. No, I'm kidding. And then finally, it restores the water level, but it does it, as Connor said, with no risk of flooding. And we were just delighted to learn that Masser had actually taken it upon themselves to do this hydrological study. They came up with an equation to verify this. And Dara, we wanted to offer that if Ray Jerkowski would like to see this equation, he'll understand what it is, and they'd be happy to provide it to him and have a discussion. And then finally, we are concerned about the downstream impact, and if I can take my slides out of order again, one of the reasons, no, come back. Okay, so this picture was taken at the end of September 8th of 2018, give or take. And this was the perfect weir, as Kevin said, and the biologist from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation actually said, just leave the maintenance alone. because the beavers are doing naturally what you're trying to do, you know, with, you know, the lake. But that doesn't help the highway department do what they need to do. And so that wasn't obviously a meaningful solution, but I put this picture in here because this thing was up, oh God, I did it again, I'm so sorry. This thing was up for maybe a month, maybe more. This is what Stissing Lake looked like on the same day. So you can see that there was no impact to the water level. And we heard at the last town meeting that there have been complaints that there's been too much water in Stissing, that the water level is unusually high. So we see this as a great way to do an equitable balancing act. So I'd
the
like.
terms that you guys are sending too much water down to Stissing?
Yes, yes.
By lowering the level in that moment. But no matter what, it would stabilize at some point after.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so a phenomenon that happened last summer was quite extraordinary. The beavers had done, the board had a meeting down at the culvert, yay. And what happened was the beavers had put a bunch of stuff around the contraption. And Stissing Lake was high, and what happened was it had reached sort of the perfect equilibrium between the two lakes, which is what you really want to try to achieve. It was nature's own equilibrium. And so what the Masser design does is it allows us to facilitate that equilibrium and not interfere with it, like sometimes the beavers will do. But honestly, we cannot do this without the support of the town. So we'd like to make 2 calls of action tonight. The first is that we'd like to ask the town board and Supervisor Cloud to endorse the Masser Weir design. If there are aspects of the design that we need to tweak or satisfy, you know, let us know. Just please appreciate that this has been done at tremendous cost to the members of Twin Island Lake Association. We are a wonderful mix of people of all different walks of life and socioeconomics. So just appreciate that every time we engage these guys, you know, the meter goes, probably like a lawyer, whatever. And the second thing we'd like you to do is to, if we'd be willing to run the playbook of this, if you guys would be willing to let us do it, we'd like you to authorize Twyla to commence the construction and the installation of the weir, and we'd like to do it sooner so that we have this summer. There's still water in the lake. It had, notwithstanding all of the tremendous rain that we have suffered so far, it's still down by about 8 inches from where it was in March. So,
Is
yes.
Twyla paying for the construction and installation as well?
Well, we'd love to have a discussion with the board on that. Our thought tonight was let's get to yes, but since you've asked me about the economics, so we paid $3,075 for the assessment, so about $3,000 for the Princeton Hydro assessment. The weir design was $2,300, and we would like to thank the Masser folks for really working with us because they really kept that price low. We have been told by Masser that there could be a strategy that this could be viewed as simply culvert maintenance as opposed to something that would require DEC approval. We just couldn't get the answer to that in time for this meeting, but we will update the board as we go forward. But our strategy would be to try to get the weir installed, subject to your approval, without having to spend the money for permitting, because that would be another $4,500 to $4,800, which is a real, it's a lot of money, right? And then finally, we've been given an estimate of between $500 and $7,500 to have a precast construction company build the form, and then they would bring it to the lake and set it by the side, and then the contractor who gets hired would lift it up and put it in and do the install under Masser's instructions. So all in, it's about a $15,000 to $18,000 moment. So we would love to explore with the town whether there's funding available for that, because it is a great burden on the part of the people who have the benefit of accessing the lake. And, you know, frankly, a lot of people from the town do use the lake, and we're glad they're coming there. We're actually trying to create a formalized public access so people can, yes, so that people can use it, because I don't mean to hurt anybody from Stissing Lake, but the fishermen all tell us that the fishing is far better on Twin Island Lake than it is on Stissing. And in fact, you can see Doug McNeil on our lake every day in the morning fishing, because he knows he's going to catch a fish on our lake, not his lake. So, just saying. But if we don't fix the issue, then obviously the fish will die, and there could be a fish kill as well. So we'd love to come back to you and talk to you about it. We kind of wanted to first get to yes tonight, and then we can come back and say, here's what it's really going to be, because what if we can do it with either no permitting, because the DEC is prepared to let us do this, as opposed to, and I think your strategy was to repair, to do maintenance to the face of the culvert and the flange that's at the bottom.
Yeah, it would be a swapping of an existing structure with another structure, so essentially is what it is.
You would need the town to participate in that permitting process as well, or is that?
Well, we'd need, if we're going to do this, and if you guys are going to let us run the playbook, we need to be able to tell the DEC that we are doing this with the formal approval of the town board, and I would probably work with Sarah to submit a paper that we can put in front of Warren, and you guys can all look forward to, just to support saying, yes, they have our permission to do this under these specifications, so it's very tightly worded.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, I, for one, commend Twyla for doing this amazing work and putting together this plan that makes a ton of sense to me.
Thank you so much.
You guys, I think it's so cool that a group of you all came together to really put a solution in front of us. It works. From just looking at it for me, I think this is great. Sorry, the lake's been suffering for the last however many years there.
And it's a beautiful resource. You only need to go back to that picture from the Moriartys. We asked all the lake owners to go and dig up their old historical files, and you know, considering that was like 1994, 95, and the lake looked just like that, and you can see from the vegetation that this isn't spring, this is summer. See the grass, see the trees, this is full-on summer. And frankly, when we first started the Twyla meetings, I used this photograph to motivate the board, because we had such a task in front of us. This is our goal right here, but we can't do it without the support of the town. So,
Now, have you guys talked to the Stissing Homeowners
We have.
Association? How do they feel about this?
Well, we have seen the damage that the runoff has caused on their lake, and so I think, and you know, we're having our lake association meeting in a couple of weeks, but and you know, you can add in there a couple people here from the lake. Anything that helps Twin Islands Lake is fine with us. I don't think that there's any reason for us to have a problem with it at all, and I do think that it has been a problem to see what it's done to the lake. So from our perspective, we support the weir, and you know, in terms of the impact on the vegetation and stuff like that, as you know, we're doing the aquatic vegetation study on Stissing Lake that'll be done in July, so we will then know to what extent we have more or less invasive species than we had 12 years ago the last time we did it. We've never historically had the same problem with the invasive species that they have, but Stissing Lake is 25 to 30 feet deep at its depth. And Twin Islands Lake at its deepest, back when it didn't have this problem, was 10 feet deep. And the minute you get to 8 feet deep, everything can grow from the bottom because it can see the sun. So we're two different lakes from that perspective.
And this will not affect the water level ultimately, it's just like whatsoever.
No,
There is
no,
no
because
impact.
it's the
So
same,
just so
right.
everyone
It's the
knows
same
who's
thing.
listening.
So it-
no,
it's-
and that is what this, I put these pictures at the end to show. So this was here for a month, and this is what the lake looked like on that day. The other thing I can tell you is that in 2010, we had an informal lake association, and we treated the lake. And as part of that treatment, we had to sandbag the culvert for 2 weeks. And part of the requirements that time by the DEC were you had to measure our lake
and you had to measure Stissing Lake over that 2-week period. And what was kind of surprising to all of us is that Stissing actually went up slightly, even after we had sandbagged it. So there clearly isn't a cause and effect there. But
Stissing Lake's got its own springs, it's got its own egress into the
Yep.
others, so it's not that dependent,
Yep.
I guess. is
But
what I-
but I would, if I can come behind you. You see this right here, all this detritus in here, that is probably a mix of nuisance weeds. I would be willing to bet that there's some milfoil in there, because we've actually gone over there and we've seen it, because the culvert empties out right in here. So think about what this does to the lake over time. The DEC has determined that the #1 spread of invasive species are boats. And so if you have a bunch of people putting their boats in, they're taking our nasty weeds, getting them on their boat, and then dragging them to the other side of Stissing Lake. So it really is a connection that needs to be addressed, and it actually is one of the reasons why we've had tremendous support from the Wappingers Creek Intermunicipal Watershed, as well as Cornell Cooperative.
So Heather, do you think that this would help your maintenance of it? Do you have anything to say on it?
While I have no issues with their proposal, I do advise that you seek engineering input.
Ray,
Yeah.
I'm making sure Ray
Yeah,
goes
yeah,
over this
absolutely.
before anything.
The other thing that I want to bring to your attention is at the point where the level of, so I always
Mud
call it
pond,
mud
it's
pond,
okay.
I'm sorry, I know that sounds awful though.
We all do.
But when that weir was created by the beaver, which was, I think it was towards the end of last year, we had, and forgive me, I can't recall exactly when this happened, the level of Stissing also rose, and then we had an issue downstream. We do have 2 culverts presently draining from Stissing into Thompson Pond. One has been identified as undersized. We applied for a grant, I would say several years ago, and this is considered the main culvert. The project was engineered. We were looking at a price tag of, I think, almost $250,000 roughly for this culvert to be changed. There are 2, but this was for the main culvert. The grant was not, we were not successful with obtaining the grant. So we are undersized at that location. And I'm going to defer to the engineer's recommendations. We have to keep that in mind when we're talking about all of these levels. I do completely understand where they're coming from with the level of Twyla, but we definitely need to look at that downstream impact.
So if I could just respond to that briefly, I appreciate you raising that, Heather, because you and I have talked about that before. Our theory, informed by our experts and Princeton Hydro, is if you allow us to control the water level at Twin Island, at the culvert between Twin Island Lake and Stissing, because we're holding back the spring runoff, by necessity, that has to take pressure off of those southern culverts on Stissing.
There's other factors impacting those culverts. There's other ingresses of water. You mentioned the springs flowing into Stissing. But also, if you block up the culverts on the downstream side of Thompson's, it creates, obviously, as you can imagine.
Right.
As I pointed out before.
Yes. So we need to make sure that all of that is balanced. Maintenance, of course, is an issue, and I would like to see that plan specifically with regards to the bonds.
We just got it done today, so I'm going to email it to the town board and you as well. And for those of you that are here, we'll post a copy of it on the website. I just have to figure out how to do that. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Lana from the Hi, nice to meet you too. As far as that contraption is concerned, anything would be an improvement from that cyclone fence thing. That's a given. My question is that if you raise the water in your lake, whatever, 18 inches, how is that going to affect the vegetation that you started this whole thing in trying to cure?
Very good question. So if you look at, I'm just going to go back to my station in life. If you look at the Princeton Hydro report, what emerges from that document is that it's not a one solution one fixed solution. It is multifaceted, and this is, the water level control is just one of several things that we as a lake association need to address in order to try to curb and now control the spread of invasive species. But when you add that much water, that much less sunlight, you heard Rachel's point, which is, you guys don't have the problem on Stissing Lake because Stissing Lake has much greater depths. Our depth is 15, though. I just would like to point that out. Okay. Okay, so maybe it used to be. At any rate, my point is that you are absolutely correct that the water is not going to do anything. But the reason it's so important is that if we don't fix the water, the vegetation is just going to keep growing and growing and then just basically suck up the lake. And that's what Princeton Hydro is saying. If we do nothing, the lake will die. And that will have, downstream impacts. It'll have impacts on property values, and it certainly will impact this beautiful viewshed that has long been a treasured asset of Pine Plains.
Thank you.
Yeah, anybody else?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd like to say, my name's Jim Moriarty. I live on the lake with my spouse, by the way.
How long have you been on the lake?
Longer than you are on the face of this earth. Which is the reason Holly asked me to come, by the way. You can't fish in the lake anymore. It's just not possible to cast a line and not snag it on something. I've been on the lake many years, and I've heard people say over the years, gee, somebody ought to do something. And I wasn't that somebody. But a few years ago, somewhat of an association started to form. It didn't last. There's a lot of work involved. At least she's involved.
So just for a point of reference, Jim is the owner of that beautiful property of the picture that is our muse for what our goals are. So does anyone have any other questions for us?
I know that I'm sorry, I know
Yes.
that your lake was dredged, years and years ago, it was dredged. They had big cranes come in and take out all
Not since
this
I've been
muck
there.
from the bottom.
It wasn't the dredge, they pulled lilies, they had that.
Is that what they were doing?
Yeah, they
Oh,
had the
okay.
floats
That's
to pull
different than
the,
dredging.
All right,
Yeah.
so nothing was meant, nothing helped the depth of the Twin Lakes at that time?
So what were,
And you
there's,
can't.
And you can't?
You can't.
well, there's a process. So like I said, there's multifacets, this is a multifaceted approach. It won't get fixed all in 1 year, but we cannot put those harvesters in the lake. It would be irresponsible for us to do that. Why? Because Eurasia milfoil, it's like one of those really fine ferns that you sometimes see at the florist, or like dillweed. It just breaks off, and so if we were to put those things in there, we're just spreading around our own problems.
It's like
So-
getting a haircut.
yeah, it
Really.
sprinkles all over you when
Yep.
you're done, and so it would be very bad. Curly leaf pondweed is worse than, in some ways, on the fragmentation, and the worst part about curly leaf pondweed is that it grows by what they call overwintering. So its growth season is done like April or May, so if you don't get on top of it right at the beginning of the growth season, you can't treat it for a given year. And it spreads, and I think Suzanne Ouellette, who has the most beautiful bird's eye view of the lake, can speak to the masses of curly leaf pondweed that have formed.
Yeah, we've lived on Twin Island Lake, also known as Mud Pond, since 1986, and sit high above the lake and can look out, and there is this kind of mass on the other side of tannish, greenish, sometimes even pinkish vegetation. And I check that out every day, and indeed you see that moving, getting closer and closer to our side. Also, we've got steps that go down into the water. I remember last year this was so dramatic because when we came up after winter, so I'm talking about probably early April, I'm checking out the steps, and I've got 3 steps going down into the lake, which is how it was designed, is to help us get into the kayaks. But within weeks of that, the water level had dropped so drastically, and what I was left with was sad amount of debris, on what had once been underwater and now was out of the water with just dead weeds on it, so.
And that's actually a really important point that you made, Suzanne, which is best practices according to the DEC for maintenance in and around a wetland area is you always need to be mindful of the upstream and the downstream impacts of what you're doing. You're not supposed to do it during, like say, October through April. But the other thing is that if there is a flood of water that goes through a culvert or rushes out of a wetland, it is sure to hurt the wetland vegetation. And I have a photograph, I'm sorry I forgot to upload it, but it shows this distressed wetland plant. It's a beautiful, like, weedy thing. The upper half of it is still green, but the bottom half is dried and brown because it doesn't have enough water. So eventually the top will dry as well. But it's the rush of water out that causes so much stress on the plants and takes the invasive species with it.
Do we have a topic for our workshop? Do we want to invite the CAC and Twyla this month?
No, we're going to talk to them in the fall with Stissing Lake Association when their report is finished. So we're doing everybody together, hopefully September.
Okay.
Right, but what we're hoping is that we can get the WEIR approval done now so that we don't have another summer like this, because we are terrified that the lake won't come back.
So I think we have one request to let our town engineer take a look
Yeah,
at it.
and I want to hear Don's
One
point of
town
view
board
as
member
well.
too, or-
So that's why I was saying if we could
Was-
at least invite Twyla in for next month's workshop meeting,
You
unless
know,
you have
there-
something planned.
There is a tremendous a crisis, and this has to be addressed as soon as it possibly can be addressed.
Well,
It
all
really
right.
can't wait.
Okay.
I think that's the status which we've got here. And this is I agree that Ray should take a look, and we should have the engineer take a look at it. But it's a pretty simple proposal.
Yeah, it's
And
not complicated.
there's the possibility that it could really do a lot of good. And I cannot imagine, there's this incredible amount of time, energy, financial resources that have been put to work here. And I think that this town board should collaborate with what this big piece of the public has done for us already, which is a huge contribution.
Thank you.
Should we move and perhaps vote on it now
I
without
would
the
like to.
That's what I would
engineer?
like to
But
do.
even in the absence of the engineers?
Well,
Review.
we're just giving approval to sort of go
Okay.
forward
Yes,
and get
that we support
the
this
estimate
effort.
and the,
Absolutely not.
Okay.
okay.
Slow down.
Okay, this is John Hoffman, who leads our CAC.
Absolutely not. Can I ask a couple questions?
Oh, please.
So, you got the approval of Wappingers, you said?
Yes.
Okay.
We have a letter.
And that has a seal on it, right?
It does.
Okay. What's the date of the seal? So, I thought you said you had the approval of Wappingers.
No, he's talking about the seal on his paper.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
We
about.
got that in February when we presented the lake assessment report to them and the whole plan of all the different things that we were planning to do.
So what approval did you get in February? It was not on this design, correct?
Can I address that? This is right in, this completely addresses everything that is laid out in the Princeton Hydro report. And I don't know the timelines, but I believe the approval was based on that report. It's apples to apples. And I know there's some concerns about the engineering on the project. I'm looking on the younger side, but this was done with the engineer that signed off is Andrew Featherston. He's a principal at the firm, and he's been doing hydrology and stormwater design for over 20 years. He's a certified floodplain manager, and this is what he does. He's very good at this. And I know if there is concerns about I understand, the hesitancy to approve something, but would it be possible to vote on something with a contingent, an addendum that this is based on, approval of the engineer upon review?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I'm okay with
And
that.
other concerns you might have
Oh,
too,
yeah, definitely, yeah.
Okay, can you go back to the picture of the beaver weir?
Wonder what the beavers would think of being called that.
We call it the beaver contraption.
That was it.
You said that was perfectly constructed?
Well, John, I think you might be
Not literally.
overstating, not literally. What I'm saying is,
okay.
is that the beavers did naturally
So I
what
won't-
this weird,
I won't hold you to that. But at the same time, the lake looked like what? The problem that you were saying needed to be addressed?
oh, it was too late by this point. That's the
John,
whole point.
that only lasted for a couple of weeks, and then it got pulled
There-
out. So that,
I
no,
don't
that's
know.
the whole point.
I don't know who's selling who what, but this was done today. It was not reviewed.
Oh,
That's not true.
no,
So-
oh, no. I'm happy
This
for you
is-
to look at the
This is the
dates
first
on
time
the
people
film.
are seeing this. And what they are asking you to do tonight is to approve this, and then they are going to go forward and say that it was reviewed by the town to the DEC.
No,
This-
John,
this-
that's not what we're saying.
This
What we are
needs more of a
asking the
process. This needs more review.
So what we're asking for, John, from the town, is to be able to go to this DEC and say, we've put this forward, and there were no major objections, subject to Ray Jerkowski meeting. And I think it'd be a really good idea if we got the two engineers together. Ray's firm does a lot of work with their firm, so they know each other. And this firm is very well known, would be very well known to him. So that way Ray can ask whatever engineering questions need to be asked. John, I am happy to sit with you and let you look at the dates of every single letter that I have in support of what we're doing. I'm happy for you to look at every single date on every one of these photographs because, you know, you can't take a picture now without it being dated. It just doesn't show up in a PowerPoint presentation, but I'm delighted for you to see that because what you see, excuse me, Beth, what needs to be pointed out, does anybody have like, oh, I'm going to use the craft project. So, you see this up in here? There's virtually no water in here. This was at the end of summer, and so what the beavers were desperately trying to do was to save some amount of water in the lake, which is why they dammed it up toward the end. And John, this did appear like maybe August, but by then the water had already gone out. And Rachel, you and I, excuse me, Beth, I do want you to talk, but you and I had spoken last year that by end of July, the water was not running between.
Oh, yeah, and then it got pulled out about 4 weeks later, so it never really had a chance to
Yeah.
affect much of anything.
Yeah.
You know.
Right. Yeah, Beth?
Pulled those out late.
Yeah, exactly. We pulled it out before the right, yeah.
At the point in time that this, well, last July, the end of July, I had 12 feet of beach, and I have 1 foot right now, maybe 2. So in about 1 month's time, the water receded about 7 feet on my property. It was just an amazing, you know, loss of water. So,
May I get your name?
I'm sorry, Beth McLiberty.
What are some of the threats you're thinking about, John, as you proceed, other than the procedural, maybe?
There's a few issues. What alternatives have you explored?
Well, we've looked at dredging, and that was going to cost between $5 and $10 million, which we were pretty sure we couldn't raise even with green stamps. So we looked at that. We did look at the hydro raking, but Princeton Hydro said, do not rake because you'll just spread the invasive species around. So we did look at that as well. We asked Princeton Hydro, when they did their assessment, to take a look at the impact of the rushing water out of the lake on the vegetation and its impact on the growth of invasive species. And what we asked them for was a simple design. Now, part of that language came from a wonderful conversation I had with Don Bartles. I invited him to my home. I said, please come and let me talk to you. And Don was like, you know, those weirs can be very expensive. And of course, I'm weary right now, but I am not a weir maven. And so we were very concerned about cost.
I think you can speak to the fact that this is a commonly used design and
Yeah.
it's effective.
The 4x4 concrete precast structure is just a common part that you, like any precast concrete manufacturer would get. It's not
And the, when you referenced the historical levels, that was from what study?
I don't think it needs to be verified by a study, John. People back in 1990 who were enjoying the lake were out doing just that. Jim behind you there, he and his wife have talked to us about how they used to get off that dock right there, and they would swim out to the small island with no problem. There was no vegetation.
There was a problem, I could hardly make it.
Besides, you want
No.
the math, we went from an 18-inch culvert to a 36-inch culvert. It's not a genius to figure out the water
The top
level
of the
went down.
culvert, is that the same place?
That was not, no, and that's why no.
What'd you say?
Yeah, no, let me do it.
There are no records in the highway department stating that was done. So I just want to let you know that as well.
We know you looked for it.
I have searched high and
Found it
low.
on a DEC site.
You did.
And
You
there was
share
actually a
that with
permit.
me?
Yes.
There was actually a permit for it. Yeah.
I'd love to see that. If you have it, if you
Yeah.
could share it with me, because I'll put it in my files.
Yeah.
But I have gone crazy looking for that information.
You mentioned, and we
Do they talk
appreciate that.
elevations in there, Kevin, about the height of?
It's just a listing of applications.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
now what we do have is from 2010, when we did the water level measuring for the thing that the board was doing at the time there. So we do have some pretty detailed measurements that Ralph Buckmeyer put together for us. But you don't need to be concerned about water level when your lake looks like this. It's only in the last couple of years that it has declined precipitously.
But I mean, why not go back to 1950 or 1960 or 1920 or 1880? Like, why 1996?
Oh, good question, because that's the year that, based on Heather, everything we can figure out, that's the year that the culvert was changed from an 18-inch to a 36. Now, there was a gentleman who used to live on the lake, his name shall go unnamed, but as he moved out a few years ago, the last thing he told me, he picked up the phone, he said, I just want you to know how I was helping the culvert. I would take a bag of concrete, stick holes in it, and then I'd throw it in the culvert to try to keep the water level up. So, yeah, I know.
He doesn't live here anymore.
He doesn't live here anymore, and I will tell
It's a
you.
very special place.
Yeah, I will tell you that the board and the members of Twyla are committed to doing this in a way that's lawful and also consonant with the environmental laws, so you won't see any of us doing that. But it is one of the reasons.
Foul play.
Yeah, it was, I mean, it inured to our benefit, but let me say another thing to you. Come over to the lake, I'll put you on my boat, and what I'll do is I will take you to docks of people like myself that have been around the lake for a long time. So my dock was put in at a time when the lake wasn't quite like this, but it was sure close. So there was a plank that is stationary and then it goes out to a floating dock. That dock used to be level, so you didn't step down. Right now, the difference between the plank that's stationary and the dock that floats is this much. Last summer, it was that bad, and my dock was quote-unquote flooding on the hard pan of the bottom of the lake. So we have, and the DEC asked us to gather anecdotal evidence just like that. So you take the dock of my mother's residence next door, same thing. She has a landing and then a plank that is floating. There is now about a 10-inch difference. All those were built when the water level was at the normal level. And Viv and Kevin, I think you have a great example of your landing, which you haven't seen.
The very end of our property used to always be underwater in the spring.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And now it's...
And we used to swim in the lake.
Yeah.
You know, and not possible.
Are there any residents of the lake who are opposed to
Yeah, we
this
shot 'em.
project?
My
Did you say that? John, remember the part about lawful? Actually, we have not shot any members in the beautiful part about it.
And there are no plans in the future to do.
That's right, for the record. But
Hey, our engineer's here.
But the best part about it is.
I would go.
Run, Ray, run. So, actually, that's what I said at the beginning of the presentation. You know, we're here with a number of our constituents, but also we're here with the full support of those who couldn't be here.
Everybody on our lake was notified about the meeting and about what's been going on, so any opposition that they had, they would have presented either to us or to you.
Yeah.
You know, they would have made it known, and when people's feelings are strong, they stand up for it, you know, so.
So maybe we should try to maybe make this vote at the workshop meeting
Well,
rather
that's
than
what I'm saying, because
tonight.
it's not as long. We
in
can
principle
inform
has
Don
my
about it.
support,
We can
in
inform
this
Ray, our
moment.
engineer can talk to Mazer in the next few weeks.
Rather
and we'll
than
do it
trying
as
to
our work.
redo the whole presentation for Ray right now,
I don't know.
Because Christina right now is probably
Yeah, I
super
promised
psyched
you
that
10
she was
minutes, I'm
behind
sorry,
you guys
but
on the
I think it's
agenda.
been good, robust dialogue. So what we can do is, I'm happy to run through, we maybe won't have the master person here because it's expensive to bring him up here, but we can talk about that. For sure, we'll set the two of them up so they can talk engineering. And then I'm happy to run through this again with at the workshop, if that would be of help to you.
Yeah, the workshop would be
Do you know anything
in
about
July.
Ray?
Thank God.
Maybe around July 8th, it looks like.
Well, the 18th would be that Thursday, so it would be like the 10th, right? Or
10th
the,
is a Wednesday.
Yeah, the 8th is a
8th is a Monday.
and that our engineer goes for, I would be on board of the town helping you guys to pay for something.
Can I weigh in on this? There's a lot of legal issues that we have to discuss on this. I mean, I'm not sure I understand what the Lake Association is asking the town to do. Are you asking the town to fund and complete this project?
Not yet, they haven't.
Not yet, we have
Yeah.
not
Okay.
asked that
Now,
yet.
what are you asking for tonight? What was the vote on? I'm not sure I
We
understood
didn't
that.
vote.
They started
No, but
to.
what were you asking us?
Oh,
What was the?
we were just discussing how to kind of go forward. We haven't
Right.
Right.
figured out
So
how to
we-
vote.
But the problem is, this is a public work, I don't understand whether it's a public works project and whether we have jurisdiction over this pipe. Who would be doing the work? It has to be put out to bid. We have to do an environmental review. Once the town gets involved in a project like this, our hands are tied in terms of all the hoops that we have to jump through.
So we should avoid.
Not the least of which is is subject to seeker and an environmental review. So I'd like to get a better understanding of exactly what the participation is that's expected of the town financially, and also who's going to be doing the work. Because if it's doing the work, it has to be put out to bid. You're going to be subject to prevailing wages. The cost could go up
What if the Lake Association
astronomically.
were doing the work themselves?
They cannot do the
They
work.
cannot touch
They
it.
cannot do the
No,
work.
so one of.
Either they do the whole project themselves if they have jurisdiction, but once the town, if this is a culvert that we have jurisdiction over, then we have to do the work.
Seems like it is a
It
culvert
is,
that we have
it is a culvert.
Well, we have
jurisdiction
to,
of.
we have to verify that. And then we have to do the work. The Lake Association can't do the
Yeah,
work
we
on a
actually,
culvert.
just to make clear, we weren't proposing to do that. What we were looking to do was have Masser help us put it out for bid with local contractors, but.
We have to put it out. The town has to go through a formal bidding process on this. I know you don't,
No,
I don't want to tie things up, but there are,
but that's what I'm hearing.
we have laws.
So,
Well,
yeah, so.
Those are state laws, those are.
I can't tell you to violate the
right.
law. I mean,
No, but you're right, Ray, those are state laws, and this is a local law, and if the DEC says it can be done without a permit, then.
No.
You're mixing up, it's confusing.
Two different, you're talking orange and apples there.
Okay, well, let me correct it.
Because this, and again, I'll defer to Warren, but under municipal law, the town, if it's a culvert that's under the jurisdiction of the town owns that culvert, owns the roadway, the town has to undertake the project as a capital project. As a capital project, there is municipal law that dictates what needs to be done as far as how it needs to be bid out,
publicly bid, as well as prevailing wage, specifications, so on and so forth. So permitting from the DEC is one aspect, only one aspect in the entire project.
And we're just talking about the install, right? Which is maybe something Heather could even accomplish, or does it require a very specialty contractor?
So actually, one of the things that Masser has shared with us is that oftentimes the municipality will do the work. And in a perfect world, we'd love to see Mike Coombs run this project under Masser's supervision, if you were open to it. And it certainly would be the most cost-effective way to get it done.
If I could ask a question as far as you put up seeker, could be like sold as like a maintenance of an existing culvert. That's not typically something that's subject to seeker.
I'm sorry, I can't
Yeah,
hear
Ray,
you.
you missed this explanation earlier.
Yeah, so we're proposing to swap out an existing end of a structure, a flare-down section, for an outlet control structure. That would affect the water level, yes, but it's maintenance to a degree on an existing
If you
structure.
could bring it under a type 2 action under seeker,
That's
but
what I'm
we have, this is the first I've heard of these plans. It has to be reviewed by our engineer, and we have to make a determination as to whether it's exempt from seeker. It could be exempt from seeker.
That's what we're
But,
hoping.
but the point is, you can't just vote on this. I mean, we have to, Ray and I have to discuss it. We have to discuss it with you. It's not to, to stop this project, but we have to make sure it's done correctly, especially if public funds are
It
involved.
will rain more, and the water level will return, right?
Yeah,
Or you
it's
assert
just,
it won't.
no, that's
But once
the
the weir's
problem.
in place.
Yes.
So
But-
maybe another month on top of 15 years or whatever it's been is
Yeah,
not too
listen,
much.
let me repeat myself. The beautiful part about the people who are members of Twin Island Lake Association is we want to do it right. We want to do it where the result will be lasting, and we want to do it in a way that's consistent with the laws. We have looked at the issue, and we don't think a seeker review is required under here, and we get that with the help of our engineers and also with Princeton Hydro. But let's look at it. I would only ask that we don't drag this out, because I don't think the lake can survive another summer.
I'm not looking to drag it out, but this is the first I've heard of this.
Well, guess what? The design got done today,
Yeah.
so
Wow.
it's brand new for all of us.
So we're going to have to, I suggest we have an attorney-client session with Ray. We have to talk about some other things, so I can go over this in more detail with you. But we're going to need to see this, the hydro, the Princeton report, and we need copies of all these plans, and then Ray and I can discuss.
Is that something we could do in 2.5 weeks at the workshop meeting, maybe?
Yeah, so
Rather
it's
than-
great.
I'm gonna.
It's very simple.
I don't know that it can be done in 2.5 weeks.
Pipe in the ground, I guess.
So-
We're not engineers, but it's very simple, right?
Ray,
Play around some water levels and some lakes.
Right, I was saying, we're not doing anything till you look at it.
that's true, before you
We're
walked in.
restoring
I
it
was
to how
gonna
it
say
was.
that.
Restoring it.
So Ray, is your email address still the same as it used to be when you helped me out many years ago?
No.
Okay, all right, so if you have a card, let me take your card, and I will make sure that you have the weir, the design for the weir, and also the Princeton Hydro report in your file. I'm happy to share a copy of this slideshow if that would be helpful to you. We want to be very transparent with the town, and that's what we've striven to do.
There you go.
Thank you very much, Warren, appreciate it. Okay. Thank you all for your attention, we really appreciate it. Yeah.
And are we confirmed with the workshop meeting in 2 weeks with these guys, or whatever,
I'll
these guys?
I'll set the date.
Yes.
Yeah,
I think that is a way of expediting it, because our engineer, our lawyer, a few weeks to look at things.
They're gonna put a draft.
How long it's
Yeah.
going to take them.
Oh,
Weird, it is.
and it's gonna look like
Something though.
And now it looks more like a...
Oh, I just want to say something. It was our first time that we have used our new, and I think it was wonderful, and I think you did a great job
Thank you.
using
It's a little
it,
close.
I think it's a great
Don't
addition.
touch it, it'll fall down,
It's a
right?
great addition.
Yeah, we were grateful to have
It's
it.
really great.
Okay, so we're gonna get out of your hair so we don't like try to wiggle in more questions.
Thanks,
Okay, you're welcome.
Come by anytime. Right.
So now the numbers will
we'll have our revenge.
Take
Take care.
How are you?
That must have been rough.
Thank you for bringing us back to our senses, Warren.
Nobody was gonna
Fast and
vote on
loose.
it.
Fast and loose.
Warren, nobody was gonna vote to approve it. We were just gonna vote to sort of, or talk about how to go forward.
John's point's taken.
Yeah, I mean, it was.
If what they needed our approval for was to go to the DEC, it is better to leave.
I knew I was in trouble when I told them there's not one stop. I should have just turned around.
Okay, everybody, if you guys could be quiet as you leave. We have to move on, and we have another, yes. I want to introduce Christine Borick from Rebuilding Together.
Hi. Is it okay if I stand here?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. Wow, what a nice, engaged conversation. You know, just seeing so many wonderful. No, it's wonderful. It truly is wonderful to see. You know, I go to a lot of town board meetings. It's nice to see so many residents come out and really be engaged and concerned about your community. So, good for you. Kudos. So, oh, I have to stand here. All right, so. We are Rebuilding Together. We are a local nonprofit. I'm just going to stand behind you, okay, Jerry? We're a local nonprofit with a vision of safe homes and communities for everyone. We are the nation's leading nonprofit working to preserve affordable home ownership by providing no-cost home repairs and modifications for low-income homeowners. Our mission is repairing homes, revitalizing communities, and rebuilding lives. And we've had this impact on our community for over 27 years. I'll talk to you. Let's go down here again. So we were founded here locally in 1992. Our affiliate network dates back to about 40 years. We were founded as Christmas in April. Some of you may recognize that name. We changed our name in the early 2000s, really to better reflect the work that our affiliate network is doing across the country year-round rather than just in April. But the same core mission remains the same for our affiliate as well as all of the network. But for the 27 years that we've been here in Dutchess County, we've completed over 750 home repairs for residents of Dutchess County, and our work is not possible without the wonderful volunteers that come out to help us year after year. And in our 27-year history, we are nearly at 14,000 volunteers engaged over that time frame. We, a couple of years ago, introduced a nonprofit repair program. We've done 4 of those so far, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later in my presentation, so we hope to do one here in Pine Plains. We look at the market value of the work that we do, so not only the repairs and purchasing the materials and paying contractors when necessary, but also the value of the time of our volunteers, any in-kind donations that we receive. And the market value of the work that we've done since our inception is $6.6 million invested back into our community. So a significant investment in safe and healthy housing for Dutchess County. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about why we repair homes. There are other nonprofits in the housing industry that are building homes for individuals who don't have them. We really focus on owner-occupied residents, providing those no-cost repairs and accessibility modifications for a number of reasons. First and foremost,
home ownership has many benefits that, so this isn't on my slide, but I'd like to talk about it, around just elevated education levels, individuals feeling safe and part of a place in their community. And so having home ownership is really important to the overall community and the diversity within a community. We also address safe and healthy hazards. You know, individuals who are struggling with affordability within their home oftentimes defer maintenance within their home, and that deferred maintenance can really result in a number of safe and healthy issues within the home. We'll talk a little bit about water and roofs a little bit later, but that often comes to mind, and people can really get their head around, you know, if you have water or moisture in your home, that often results in mold, which then can make a really unhealthy situation for your home. And so we're addressing those through our home repair. We're also preserving and restoring aging housing stock. Dutchess County has a very large portion of our stock, housing stock is aging housing stock. In fact, 67% of the housing stock in Dutchess County was built before the mid 1970s. And so that type of housing stock has its own set of safety and healthy issues. You know, we're still using lead paint, for example, in homes back then. And so that can be a real safety hazard, health hazard, especially if there are children in the home. And so our work helps to preserve that aging housing stock within our community. It also enables seniors and individuals living with disabilities to be able to remain in their home independently. We talk a lot about, we serve a lot of individuals that are older and disabled. Our older adults in our community really want to age in place. Actually, 9 out of 10 individuals that are older adults say that they would like to age in place. But only about 60% of them do not have the resources to dedicate to maintaining their home in order for them to age in place. And we know that falls are really the #1 risk to individuals 65 or older. But with some really minor repairs, we can help reduce the risk of falling within a home. Things like removing carpeting that may be a tripping hazard and putting down laminate flooring, or putting grab bars and handrails up, or repairing steps in and out of a home, or sometimes even just having a second handrail at steps within your home can really help you prevent falling. If you fall and you break your hip, the average expense to that is about $37,000, but a grab bar costs about $25. So we think it's a wonderful investment in our community to help people prevent those falls, prevent oftentimes what comes after those falls, and really not being able to recover and live independently anymore, and really be able to feel independent and safe within their home. We also, through our work, we reduce energy consumption costs for individuals, and oftentimes lower income individuals are spending more on the energy costs within their home than the average income home. And so if we can go in and make some minor adjustments around energy efficiency, even just caulking and weather stripping oftentimes can help, but we also do replace windows and doors. We replace light bulbs to LED light bulbs. So every little bit helps when you're really living paycheck to paycheck or on a limited income. And so we address those issues as well. And then our work also stabilizes properties and their values within our community. We know that as a home is lost to either deferred maintenance or foreclosure in a community, it results in a 10% decrease in market value for that community. But the corollary effect is also true, that if we help to revitalize a single property or multiple properties within a community, we start to see the market value of homes in that community rise. And our homeowners tend to stay in their home. Most homeowners that we serve stay in their homes for the rest of their lives. And so those are individuals who are vital parts of the community, that are paying their taxes and are engaged in their community, and we think that that's really important, as I think you do as well. So, how do we do this? So we really take a whole house approach when we look at a home for an applicant, and it's systematic science-based approach around safe and healthy housing. We have 25 safe and healthy housing priorities that we look at in each home that we serve. And they're really based off of these 8 principles of safe and healthy housing. Keeping it clean, keeping it dry, safe, thermally controlled, maintained, contaminant-free, and ventilated. And I just want to talk about a little bit, we talked moisture earlier, keeping it dry, and the health hazards that can come with moisture within your home. Safety are a number of those things that we've already addressed around accessibility modifications, simple things like grab bars and handrails, all the way to making a bathroom handicapped accessible with roll-in showers or installing wheelchair ramps, doing repairs or replacement of front steps, things like that, all around the safety for an individual. Also, safety would include things like electrical upgrades and dealing with GFCIs in your kitchens and bathrooms. Contaminant-free, we touched on that a little bit with lead paint. That's a huge issue within our older homes. Pest-free is one that people don't often think about, but little critters in your home can be triggers for asthma and real issues, especially if you have younger individuals within your home. So those are all things that we look for in a home. And we really break our programs down into 2 component parts. Our large-scale repair services are what if you know who Rebuilding Together is, you've heard of our rebuilding days. Those are our large-scale projects. Oftentimes we do multiple projects in a single day in both April and October. April paying homage back to our founding. So those are our very large-scale projects where we're doing the roofs and the replacing the windows and maybe switching out heating systems, large-scale things like that. And those projects typically have a market value of about $20,000 to give you a sense of how large they can be. And that's on average. We're doing one in Village of Wappingers right now that's probably going to be market value of over $50,000 when we're done, if not more. And then our small-scale repairs are our newer programs, and these are really kind of broken into 2 things. One is a home safety and fire prevention program that deals with 5 items that are on that 25 critical home checklist, which are smoke alarms, carbon monoxide alarms, fire extinguishers, exterior lights for safety, reflective house numbers, and that's it. And we do those programs throughout the year. We often do multiple projects in a single day in a focused area. We've done a number of them out here in Pine Plains. Those projects allow us to be in the home and get to know the homeowner and their other needs, and oftentimes now we are seeing that then we are moving homeowners along the path of our other programs. One being our handyman program, which also falls within our small-scale repairs. And so if we're in the home doing home safety and fire prevention, we may note, again, the need for grab bar or handrail, or maybe there's a threshold ramp that needs to be replaced, something like that, where we would come back and do those handyman repairs for that homeowner. That's not to say that somebody who has those needs can't engage us directly without, incorporating first going through the home safety and fire prevention. We just do all of them while we're there. We also do all of that fire safety work on our large-scale projects as well. Again, all of those items are on that 25 priority checklist. So this is a breakdown of the programs, as we've already talked about. For our Rebuilding Day programs, we do between 15 and 20 of those in the year. As I mentioned, April and October, we do those projects with volunteers. We do a number of projects throughout the summer with contractors really, the projects that need a high level of skill, we'll do those throughout the summer. Our handyman program, we'd really like to expand this program to do 10 of those projects this year. Our home safety and fire prevention program, last year we did 131 homes through that program. Our goal this year is to do 125. So we'd love for you to help spread the word about that program. And then I indicated earlier about community revitalization and not just doing working with homeowners, but also help to strengthen the community. And so we know that our nonprofit partners in the community defer maintenance on their properties, much like our homeowners do, because they want to put all of their critical resources into their programming. And so oftentimes they're left with a lot of the deferred maintenance items that our homeowners are dealing with. And so we launched this program a couple years ago, and it's really been a great way for us to support communities, and we'd love to be able to do multiple home repair projects in a community as well as community spaces or nonprofit centers. And so if you know of buildings or open spaces within your community that could benefit from revitalization, we'd love to talk to you about that. So, the application process. So we revamped our application for our home repair programs this year. It's a single application that individuals, they don't need to decide which application based on program. And it really defines the type of information you need to fill out within the application based on your needs, whether it's small scale or large scale projects. So for our small scale projects, we take those applications year round. For our large-scale programs, our Rebuilding Day programs, the application cycle is June through September. So if you are listening or are here or know somebody who could benefit from some of those large-scale repairs or accessibility modifications, please do encourage them to apply. Our application's on our website, rtduchess.org. We are also planning on being here at the town hall with staff on June 27th between 1 and 3. Our AmeriCorps members will be here. If any of your residents have questions about would they be eligible for the programs, how do they fill out the application, what do they need to include for income eligibility, we will be here for residents to come and ask questions, and if they need help with either making copies or anything like that, we'll be here to help them. As far as eligibility, I mentioned that our programs are for owner-occupied residents. You must own and reside in the home. It has to be a Dutchess County home. We look at the income eligibility as 80% of the county median income level. Those numbers just came out from HUD in the last month and have gone up. A family of two, I think it's about $56,000 to be eligible. Those numbers are on the application, so certainly if you think that or you're not sure if you would be eligible, you can check the application or our website. And I mentioned our homeowners tend to stay in their homes, which is what we want them to do. And so we ask that their mortgage and their taxes are up to date so that they can stay in their home once we come in and invest in the repairs. And that they have an active insurance policy to protect their investment and ours. And then lastly, the home value can't exceed $275,000. And that is something that our funders look for us to put in place. So I think that, this just gives you a little overview of how we accomplish all of this. I've gone through some of these numbers already with our programming. We are a small but mighty staff of 4 individuals, and we take both the funding that is provided to us through grants and other government agencies. We engage about 300 volunteers on average a year. Last year, our numbers were actually quite higher than that. We were at about 450. And certainly in-kind materials as well as in-kind services donated really help us stretch the funding that's on that top line there. And then that really then equates to those repairs that we're able to do across the board for the various programs that we provide to the community. And then lastly, I think I just have, contact information. But we really want to just get out. We really have a great interest in doing more projects in the northeast portion of the county. And so we'd love for you to help spread the word that we're here, that if individuals are selected for our services, it is at no cost to them. We do ask homeowners to stay in their home for at least 2 years after we serve them, but most of them, that's not a problem because that's what they want to do. And so we'd love to just have you spread the word about our programs and ask any questions that you may have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions?
Well, I just want to say that your work is known in our community.
Good.
And it's been really impressive, the
We
kinds
have-
of jobs. I mean, it's really, this is a terrific program. And they've really made it possible for some people to stay in their homes and to stay in their homes in a really nice way. So it's a super program.
We have, I think, 6 people filling out applications as
Yeah.
we speak.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
Pine Plains.
So it's great.
Yeah, Darren and I have spoken about, we'd love to have, we can have a greater collective impact in your community if we can do multiple projects in a shorter period of time.
Yeah.
And, really be able to engage then, maybe the VIP hall or something like that, a community building that really needs work as well, to really kind of get everybody in the community out together, and we will be providing the project management of all of that. And so we're really excited about that opportunity. And we did a project for Mary, who's a Pine Plains resident last fall. And we did a video of that project, and if you look on our YouTube page, from Fall Rebuilding Day 2018. You can see her speaking, the volunteers who worked on her project, and Supervisor Cloud is on that as well. So, so we're really excited that you invited us here tonight and to the potential.
Thank you for waiting.
Thank you for doing all of your work in reaching out to your constituents as well about our programs and encouraging them to apply. We really do appreciate it.
Well, we do.
Thank
We do. Great program.
You guys put in weirs?
No, we really focus on the home. Maybe walk, walkways, things like that.
Is most of what you have in for executive session tonight?
I have, let me just see, the old library sale, I have contracts for you to sign, and we did get the down payment check.
Oh, great.
I can read that up there, thanks. And so we can do that in executive session, huh? The money just hit our account after 2 weeks. And the Pulver House purchase, we finally got their amended contracts back to us that are acceptable to them. So we're going to have you sign that, and we'll get that on. And we've ordered a title search, and I've spoken to the bank about, they've extended the offer on the bonding for another month.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah,
I knew that was running out like.
Yeah, no, I spoke to the bank today.
Okay.
So those are the only 2 things I have, and then I want to talk about the fire department in executive session, and maybe we could discuss with Ray the issue of the pond a little bit. So.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. All right, let's see. Let's go to department reports before everybody falls asleep.
Very short. I think we've got enough talking tonight. On the table, I left with Judy an amended agreement for expenditures form. When I came to you several months ago, I had just put one preliminary plan out there. As I suspected, the projects have changed. We are still going to work on Skunks Misery Road. However, I've added some other roads due to the fact that I've changed what we're going to do on Skunks Misery. So in front of you, you'll see the agreement of expenses is for work to be done on Skunks Misery Road, Finkel Road, Cedar Drive, Bowman Road, Stissing Mountain Drive, Woods Drive, and Sherwood Road. Those are specifically CHIPS projects. There will be a lot of other roads that we will be working on shimming and preparing for next year's road projects. They're just part of the inclusive of $90,000 that's set aside for general repairs. So that we'll have to refile with the county again to show the actual projects. In addition to that, the crew has been very busy with prepping those roads for the resurfacing projects, which should more than likely take place sometime in August. We are weather dependent. That already we've had so much rain that projects have been pushed. So I will definitely let everyone know ahead of time on Facebook when we are going to be scheduled. But right now it's mid-August. I'm thinking it'll probably be more like September. We are also doing the roadside mowing. And that's all I have for my report.
Great, did you have a question?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
The roadside mowing?
Yes.
when it gets towards the wetland areas, actually on Beach Road on both sides, Stissing Lake and Mud Pond, the guys went really far in. Is there a reason why they did that?
The right-of-way is 15 feet, so they should only be out, extended to about 15 feet. We have the right-of-way to maintain it.
Even if what they're doing is cutting things that are grasses that are in the water? Or that are in swampish area?
Where exactly?
We can
Beach
talk about
Road?
it later. Yeah, Beach Road, but it just,
Yeah.
there's some stuff that went down in the last 2 days that I just don't know why it happened, so.
Okay, I'll take a look at it, but we do have the right to maintain 15
Yeah,
feet from
no,
edge of road.
I know, it's just
Yeah.
that this is like below the road bed and in the water area, and it just, it's hurting birds and, all the whole environment
I'll take a
there.
look at it.
So
Over-
I'll tell you there.
Yeah, contact me, definitely.
Yeah. I just saw it. Anyway,
Yeah.
go ahead. I'll tell you in a minute.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you, Heather.
At our last workshop meeting with Highway, we had talked about reaching out to Big Papa Cooper about maybe being an advocate for some of the line painting stuff we were considering on roads downtown. Was that something we were wanting Heather to do, or should we be reaching out to Gary? Sorry, it was in old business from our last meeting. As I reviewed the minutes, there's a line item that says, ask Cooper about streetscaping.
I can certainly
painting."
reach out to him. He just helped us with a bunch of other stuff, so I can do that.
Sorry, thank you.
That's okay.
I've got those minutes here. Great, thank you. Drew?
My monthly report from May, actually it was quite a busy month, 8 building permits, which is a good sign. Gives us 20 total for the year, which historically has been a good number. There is a new home being constructed in town, another good sign. 2 COs were issued, 9 CO searches were done, 16 site inspections were performed. I have cited 6 properties with property maintenance issues in the Hamlet area. I do that by certified mail, so delivery takes a lot longer than expected on those. Two have been received so far. One property was immediately addressed, the old ATI station, they mowed it away. So I'll probably be back to you in July with maybe a request to have some properties taken care of. But we'll see. Voluntary compliance is always the goal.
We've been working with Wells Fargo on that Poplar place, and they're in Des Moines, Iowa, so we just call them whenever we drive by. Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Don't think we have an assessor report tonight. John?
Okay, we had 11.5 hours for court duty, 256 for patrol, 4 for admin, 22 hours of details, 6 hours of vehicle/other, handled 19 complaints, 9 fire and EMS, 48 traffic warnings, 37 UTTs issued, 3 parking warnings. And then I have a letter here from Stewart Shop addressed to Matt Zick. In response to your request for gift certificates for the town of Pine Plains for the summer bike safety/good tickets for COPS program, please find the enclosed certificates. You will find enclosed 200 donated safety program single scoop ice cream cards that the children of the community will get as the patrols are in town if they're wearing their bike helmet.
Yeah. So let's repeat that. Kids who wear their bike helmets, if the police see them on the road, will get issued a citation for ice cream. Ice cream will be provided to that child.
Single scoop.
Single scoop. By Stewart's. Thank you, John. I have one question for you. Do you know, is your Windows 7 is about to go out? It will not be supported by Microsoft. Are you up to date? You don't know?
When you talk that.
Okay. We need to talk. All right, okay, great. I have that. Thank you, John.
Rick?
You have my written report. Water flows stayed pretty steady through May. They started climbing at the very end. So I actually started going through a leak detection program, looking into some of the areas that we had leaks last year. Didn't find any in that area, but we did find a small leak located on Academy between Route 199 and Factory Lane. So that was repaired last Monday. We did have to take water down for a very short period of time, for about 2 hours, while the repair was being made. The repair was on the service, or my apologies, the town side of the service of the curb shutoff, so therefore those charges for the work would be going to the water improvement area, and we'll be responsible for that work. Okay, as far as the cost, it won't be very high, but unfortunately, this is one time we weren't able to put it on to the owner.
When they break in that situation, what's happening? Is the line itself breaking?
No, it's the majority of the water lines, although when we go through our new water projects, we install new service lines from the ductile iron main to the curb shutoff with new copper lines. The majority of the old piping through many of the homes is galvanized, and it's the galvanized piping in the ground that deteriorates.
So on our side, it's still galvanized in a lot of places.
Yes, correct. And again, as we do new projects, we're replacing those. And again, in this case, it was an old galvanized line that we had to repair a small section. So I still feel that we do have an additional leak somewhere within the system, so I'm going to continue with that leak detection program until we find it. Nothing dramatic. We're still sitting around that 52,000 gallon a day mark, which isn't bad. There was performed maintenance on roughly 12 hydrants within the system. Tried to concentrate on the areas of the parade route, tried to get those done before the parade that took place for Memorial Day. So my son actually volunteered, and he had to have some community hours for volunteering for school. So he did that and had a wonderful time, I have to tell you. I have to tell you more than once, as a side note, sorry to take up time, but he was amazed on how friendly everyone in Pine Plains was. He really was. He said everyone came up. We happened to do one at the park right in the center of town, and the garden club happened to be having a plant sale at the time. Someone had cookies and offered him cookies. He thought that was great. Someone offered him a bottle of soda in case he was thirsty. But everyone, hi, hello, and you just couldn't believe how friendly everybody was. So I just wanted to pass that along. That was wonderful.
I was going to formally thank the two of you for making those hydrants look so beautiful for our parade.
Oh, it was great, yeah.
And,
it was very good.
They really did. And people commented. I got a number of people saying, oh, it looks so fresh.
It's amazing what a coat of paint can do. So, but we maintain them so they've been lubricated and exercised, so that's all been good. Towards the fall, I'll actually be going out and doing some flow tests on those hydrants to provide some additional updated information to ISO that's in the process of doing a study for the fire department as well. So that'll be updating, and we'll color code the hydrants at that time. So for instance, there are a few on Route 199 that they were orange, and there's another one that was blue. We'll have to go back and repaint those tops. We just haven't gotten around to that. But all fun. And just a reminder that the end of the month we'll be taking meter readings, and bills will be sent out the beginning of July.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mike,
All right.
recreation.
So for recreation on the agenda here, I'm asking to approve 2 certified lifeguards, Kira Nielsen and Kyle Gillis. And then conditionally approve Brendan Reeby for a lifeguard position pending his certification. We currently have 4 lifeguards, which would kind of make it impossible to staff the beach as often as we would like, because just the chance of burnout and the cost in overtime for those individuals, it would limit the amount of swimming hours we can offer.
I make a motion that we approve the 2 and the 3rd certification.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
The next thing is the tree removal bids. I think that's on your guys' end.
Yep.
I also want to mention the highway department took down a tree for us, and I really appreciate that. That was really awesome. I would like the approval to establish a playground committee and approve committee members. The interested committee members are Jordan Atari, Jen Chase, Tricia Devine, and Patricia Nanetti, with Nate Chase acting as chairman of that playground committee.
Playground for the upper or the beach?
So pretty much anywhere. So we're just looking at ways that we can increase the opportunities for kids to play safely. I've been walking around talking to folks, some that are using our current playground, and there's been a lot of input in the community on that. These individuals were interested in being involved in that, and so I figure we could get a committee together for a needs assessment of that, and then have them work on, looking for sources of, funds and stuff like that for us to build playgrounds. So it's kind of just making the committee, because we might be able to add to what we have already, upgrade what we have. There's just limitless possibilities.
And it's kind of bushy over there.
You might want, that's why I said the upper.
Well, exactly. So
Our plan too, I think, reflects a playground maybe on the upper, or one we've been referencing around town.
and
But if you guys use that as make notes on that you can then kick down.
that's one of the things, because I was talking to an individual who currently uses that program, and he's like, it's great for my grandkids that are under 5.
Yeah.
My grandkids that are over 5, not so much.
Right.
The other thing is we do have some spaces available that we could look at for multiple things. I know playing baseball and stuff like that, a lot of parents, when I was a kid, their kids would have to be glued to their side because they needed to keep an eye on them. I totally think it's a good idea to have a playground up top there so a parent can watch their kid play the game, but also know it's safe. They can still keep an eye on their kid, because when people are playing their ball games, if you've got 3 kids and only 2 are on the field, the other one, I like baseball, but when you're a young kid, it's hard to sit still for those 6 innings that they play. And you can't just send them down to the beach, because you can't see from our fields down at the beach. So
While chatting with John the other day too, what was okay to mention this, regarding maybe what would need to happen to see some work done on the ground of the beach. I think maybe we're not allowed to do large-scale projects, but I think you suggested, John, that maybe landscaping work is permitted without DEC approval, maybe? There's
As long as
certain
you're not
types-
using a machine, as long as it's handwork, DEC, you don't need DEC approval. But as long as it's handwork, once you start bringing in machines.
Does a wheelbarrow
those are
include
things-
handwork? That's
Yeah,
handwork,
it's
right?
not a machine.
those are things that I think we would definitely, I'm totally
Yes.
for
He's
doing that
already
stuff, but
talking
that's
about it,
something
yeah.
that
So if we had
I
a
think
long-
we'd have to look at being next year after we
Okay.
got.
Like a
that
long,
type of
slow
approval.
plan of
Yeah,
solving
because
the issue.
part of the playground thing is the idea of natural playgrounds. So even something like a large rock or something like that kind of just complements the natural view of the lake, but it's also something a kid could climb on. So those are different things that I guess would fall under that purview of landscaping. But like I said, there's a couple different things we'd like to look at, and I know you guys have that comprehensive plan going on and different things we want to do. So I think this would actually help, because they can be like, oh, we identified this need here and did that.
We got something typed up that I can have.
It's handwritten, but I can get that to you tomorrow when I check out.
But I'd make a
And
motion.
lifeguards too.
Well, I just
Yeah,
want to say,
absolutely.
I love the idea of having a committee to look at those issues.
Do you want to make a motion?
And I would make a motion that we accept your proposal
Yep.
with the
Yeah.
And I'll
individuals
second that.
involved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Awesome. Then the next thing here, I got a million hand notes. The approval of John Bloodgood to coordinate and lead our NFL flag football program this summer. So we have a individual in our community, John Bloodgood. He's an experienced Pop Warner coach. He's worked with kids forever, really passionate about getting flag football going. We've had flag football in the past, but we have had trouble getting really quality volunteers, and I believe he's someone who would be perfect for that. He's also got a lot of experience in working with the NFL flag organization, so that would be better for him to coordinate it, because right now as I'm stepping into this, I've got a lot of stuff going on, and I don't think I could deliver as good of a program as he could in that capacity. So I would still be overseeing it, but he'd basically be my liaison and run the program between them.
We don't even need to do anything, right? He can-
I just wanted to clarify that with you guys.
It's volunteer.
Yes, volunteer position, yep.
Yeah, great.
I move that we
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Then we have a bunch of people committed to building dugouts on the girls' softball field. We have essentially all the volunteer builders and materials spoken for, and we would like to do that in July and put it up. So I guess I'm asking for permission to proceed with dugout construction pending building inspector approval. I'd like to, run the plans by him first, but we have all the materials and resources necessary to make that happen, and I'd like to do it as soon as the end of next month, but I would just like the approval to.
Mike Drew.
Yeah. Well, no, exactly, but because I haven't had that, I just want to get your approval to proceed, because the people that are interested in helping, I don't want them hanging out forever.
Probably is, but just.
Well, and so pending that approval and stuff.
My instruction is duty for tonight.
Wait, well, no, that's fine. So that's why I'm asking you guys, so I don't just do it myself.
Delay on it?
He's okay.
I'm okay with it.
Anyone wanted to do
I could find reasons.
We
to say
approve
no.
for the volunteers to do that work.
Okay. And
I second.
All right.
Just make sure we're covered by our insurance.
Okay,
Yeah, we are, we already checked.
okay, good. Awesome.
Yeah, because that was. I want to make sure I got everything on my notes. Also, I want to say that the beach staff, they did a pretty good job. Our first day of work was yesterday. Came down, we picked up literally like 3 pickup truckloads worth of sticks and stuff like that. So we're working on cleaning up, getting ready for the beach season. I actually still have some of those sticks in the back of my truck. So they're doing great there. Beach is going to be opening the 30th. The hours, general beach hours, so you can come down there. We'll have staff down there so you can rent kayaks. Will be from 10 o'clock to 7:30. And swimming hours will be from 11 o'clock to 7 o'clock. Okay, so we're going to be able for you to come down there an hour before swimming hours open up, and you can rent kayaks, stuff like that. But the swimming hours are then going to be from 11 to 7. So it's about an hour later than it was last year. So that way there's more time for people since the sun-up's a while longer.
And the 30th is also the triathlon.
Is the date of the triathlon, yes. So what we're going to do is the triathlon's going to happen. We're going to be in place to do our thing, and plans to go from there.
We're still looking for volunteers, I believe, for the triathlon.
Yes, for the triathlon, anybody who would like to show up can, show up on the day of and say, hey, I'll hold some water and, do stuff like that. Always looking for volunteers in literally everything. So.
I got to take off the sweaty ankles.
There you go.
After they just got done with everything, I got to reach down and take off the sweaty ankles. I don't know either. Showed up at the wrong time, so.
And in addition to the beach program opening up, summer track will be Tuesday night starting July 2nd going to August 6th at the high school track at 6 o'clock. Kindergarten. Yep. No, July 2nd to August 6th. That will be from 6 o'clock to 7:30 is grades K through 6. And then from 7:30 until dusk, grades 7 through 12 and adults will also be able to come and participate. So the first part's going to be structured on track and field participation, teaching kids how to run, race, do some skills. And then the other one is so the high school age kids who are track and field athletes, as well as others who want to get in better shape for the other sports they play, can come do some conditioning, learn some more of their field events, and then any adults who also want to just get in better shape, we can scale all of that. Myself and my other varsity track coach are going to be pretty involved in that program, as well as the volunteers who have been running it in the past. So they've done an excellent job, and we're just adding that little bit to the end to open it up to more people.
It was Tuesdays, correct?
Yep, and registration for that will be in person the day of. It's free for Pine Plains residents, $10 for non-residents.
How do you feel about the progress of
We'll see. It's out there. I just got to see when it settles. But I'm having a good time and learning a lot, so I'm pretty happy.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Mike. Just to go on with the tree bids, it's getting critical down there, especially the big dead poplar on the shore. we sent out requests for bids and got 2 back. And I think what I don't have in front of you is the bid from Integral for the tree in the Little Park, which came in at $2,500. So basically, it's really expensive.
Could we do this work? Can we team up?
I don't do tree work.
Wait. This is for the pine tree in the tree park?
No, there's one bid for the pine tree in the tree park, and that is...
Is this second page just for the beach?
Yes.
Yes. So the first bid on your Everhart is the pine tree, and the second is the whole beach. And the thinking was, let's get them here for a day and they'll do everything at once. So that's why I had the
Okay,
bid.
I mean, the pine tree in the park is not dead.
Correct, it's just too big for the
It's
spot.
outgrown that spot. It doesn't have to be taken down this year.
There's been a request from people to take it down.
I'm aware of that.
And just as an extra, Brett at Gallery and Goods is willing to make things out of it so that he can kind of memorialize it.
We are going to do, the point is taken, we are going to do a park redesign. We've been
I know,
considering
but
that notion.
I don't think we should rush into it. I don't think we necessarily know exactly what we want to do, and I think it's something that maybe needs to be thought about before we go forward and take the tree down, because then we're going to need a tree at Christmas.
Yeah.
I don't know
What if we don't get one?
I mean, I just don't know if we're really ready to do that,
Yeah.
and it is a lot of money.
I think they have a plan for a
They
tree.
do.
Not that I'm a big advocate for taking the tree down immediately or
But,
anything.
I mean, the issue is the redesign for the whole park.
Right,
Well, it shouldn't be something that's just helter-skelter.
I agree, for sure.
It should be something that's, some professional has some.
The garden club is working on gathering a committee to put this together, which is something I wanted to talk about tonight, but maybe we shouldn't talk about it tonight because it's just getting late.
They're putting a committee together to redesign the park,
Yes, to
whatever?
redesign the park.
I mean, I'm all for taking the dead tree down, the dead poplar down. It's been of concern to me for a long time.
Well, I think a lot of these on this
Those are
very
really
big concern.
necessary.
Yeah, like I
Necessary.
think we should be talking about this rather
Yeah.
than the pine tree in the
Right, so
middle
It
of
can
town.
stay there
Yeah.
for a while, you know, it can stay there.
Yeah, for the wreck, those pine trees that you're about to dive into, they're right on the border there.
We're talking about a different pine tree.
No, I
Yeah,
know, but
yeah.
I think you're turning around to that. 'Cause
It would be nice to have a
Yeah, I want
plan
to see all those pine
before
trees.
That's what
doing
I think.
something so
That's exactly.
impactful.
All right, that's, yeah.
I was trying to save money by having them come once, so.
The park is gonna take them, they're gonna come back for that pine tree. They're not gonna
Okay.
do it all in one day. The
Right,
park
we
is
should
gonna
send
be a
it to
day and a
Rockefeller
half.
Center myself.
If we, if we were to bring the
It's got a
trees
big broken part in the middle of it.
over to,
It was badly pruned. Don says it was badly pruned.
By the wind.
You
Yeah.
put that side up against the building, Tara.
how much of
All
this,
right.
this estimate do we suppose is for the chipping, or is that a very small
I
component?
would have no idea. It just says, there's a nice breakdown from the integral, on the integral one.
I don't have the big integral one, I don't.
I have a copy here. Here,
I
Matt.
don't have the big one. I got it.
So they're doing all the stump grinding too?
Yep. I walked the grounds with, now Integral, this is from 2018. This is when they last proposed doing this. And they kept this as their bid.
That's
So
for the beach? I don't have
this is the whole beach. You should have this. This is the whole Integral thing.
I just have this.
Oh, you just have the tree, okay.
Yeah, I didn't have
So
that.
you take that one. All right.
Do you have this, Sarah? This is the other bid for the beach.
I think I have it.
No, I didn't get it. Well, I mean, I'm okay with doing this, but what are the difference in trees? Because, I mean, that one's just significantly lower.
Same trees?
That's what I'm trying to figure out now. just
There is
so that
one
it's-
less tree, actually, that they bid on,
Yeah,
the highway department took down already.
Okay.
Oh, so then I'm okay with the integral. I'm sure Don's gonna wanna see it though
But
before
this
we
isn't
do
this
anything, right?
first one on it, isn't that the pine tree on the integral?
The small one, what are you talking about? No,
No,
the
okay.
2100M?
Yeah.
No, that is the poplar at the end of the dead poplar.
Oh, okay.
So, I have had a citizen say that it is a great place to see a bald eagle though.
It is a great place to see a bald eagle.
That one dead tree down there. As much as an eyesore as it is.
It's not that it's an eyesore, it's that
It
it's
is a
a fall on
great
a
place
kid.
to check out.
Well, it's dangerous.
Yeah.
Really,
But it's a great place to see a bald eagle, Sarah.
I know.
So apples to apples, to borrow a phrase from earlier, are we able to compare these bids if we subtract the cost of one tree? Are they becoming sort of?
Well, this bid was created after the tree was taken down, the
So it has
Everhard.
one extra tree.
No, that one has
No.
one less tree than this. I like the integral bid.
Very good. That sounds easy.
I think that this is, yeah,
It's a better bid.
and they're very familiar with it.
Can they do it before the beach opens?
Yes. Wow. I asked them.
And if Integral can do it before the beach opens, I will make a motion if nobody else opposes to accept the Integral bid.
I'll second that.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. And then we'll wait on the pine
Don,
tree.
forgive us.
Yes, please.
All right.
There will be a backlash.
But this is not what's taking down the pine tree and the
No,
park?
Not the
no,
park.
we're not doing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
No.
You're losing me, but that's okay.
Move fast,
Did
Judy.
you take your
I
pills?
know.
It's past 9.
No, it's not 9:30 yet.
Oh, okay.
I will.
Just checking out on you.
John Hoffman, CAC.
Hello. We did receive the C-SLAP results for last year. The lake Stissing Lake is healthy with the exception of some elevated ionic conductivity. So the CAC discussed it, and what we'd like to see is another year of testing. We're set to begin that on June 30th, Sunday, the same day as the beach opens, but that'll be in the afternoon. So at the end of the year when we get the results back, if the conductivity or the ion levels are concerning elevated again, then we would potentially make some recommendations.
With having all those swimmers go through with the triathlon.
It's
and
in the
will
afternoon.
that won't do anything to your
And
possible
we
testing?
do it once every 2 weeks, so
Right.
it's.
Oh,
it
okay.
doesn't matter.
I just wanted
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
because
No.
that could be.
What is ionic conductivity? You can tell us.
Right?
Active bodies.
It's the
Well, he's gonna answer. Let him answer.
charged particles in the water.
Correct. It has to do with particles within the water, as well as their charge, whether they're positively charged, negatively charged, and so forth.
And is it, you don't want that?
I'd have to take a look at levels. Actually, I haven't seen any of the reports or
Well,
anything of that
it
nature,
has
so.
something to do with it is one ingredient that would mean that your lake might be more susceptible to additional aquatic growth. So we'll look at it in combination with the vegetation study and have a 3-year trend, if we have a 3-year trend that we can compare, because sometimes, the weather does things so that was the indicator, as opposed to like nitrogen and phosphorus and the rest of that stuff that were stable. That one was not.
But it also has an impact on potential algae bloom.
Right, exactly. So it has,
Thank you.
it's in some way related.
Good job.
It can also be used to indicate that there is too much phosphorus fertilizer, but then is being converted to something else, or too much road salt. So that's one reason why.
Do we know if we have, are people allowed to use normal?
We have never tried to
We don't
talk to the
fertilize,
Lake
right?
Association residents about it. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's something
If
that adds to those.
if we see it elevated again, we would, have more reason for concern and potentially recommend some actions. We had a lot of rain last summer, so it could be that.
And the spring's long, so it continues. So
interesting to see what.
Yes, exactly. It
Yeah,
sure does.
It'll be interesting to see what the readings come out as.
I mentioned one thing too, I think I brought it up with John, unless you're in mid-thought there too. But while I look at you over here, I've been going down to the beach and looking at water flows across the rec area and the parking lot and just seeing if there's a relationship with how swampish the beach is. But it seems as if maybe when we redid the parking lot, there was something to direct water a little better, but right now the corner of the parking lot on the right facing the beach, nearest to the beach, is where the water flows onto the beach from the slope and the entire parking lot.
Yep.
There's a drainage ditch right off of Beach Road, not 18 feet away or so, that if there was a very 4-inch berm even, it would direct all of that surface flow into the drainage ditch that maybe is a man-made canal even that goes into Stissing. Dara had mentioned, I just mentioned it to
Yeah.
our highway superintendent.
They went down to look at it,
Okay.
and couldn't, it was inconclusive. The drain is open, it's
Yeah,
working.
so this would, if we were to do this, it would stop pretty significant, maybe almost half of the
So you just want to
surface
burn?
area. Yeah, it would just redirect half of the surface flows away from going into the swamp.
Do you know the
of
canal he's
the
talking
beach.
about?
Yeah, I do, and I believe Heather in the highway department was there on another matter, maybe not specifically to that. I know that they did look, and they actually uncovered a drain from the playground area, if I
Right.
remember correctly.
There's a
There was
very
actually,
small culvert.
there's,
I think that is what they went down.
yeah, I believe that there was perhaps it was an under drain by the playground, and it
Right.
was completely submerged and covered up, and it was not flowing. They actually uncovered that. She said immediately you could see
So we
that it
cleared
made a
that
bit of a difference.
a few weeks earlier. So
Okay.
all that water, surface water flow is what wants to end up going through that culvert. And at least half of everything can be removed by diverting water in the simplest way.
I'll take a
just
look at it
up
and
the-
maybe get together with Heather.
That would
I
be
don't know
terrific.
whether Heather looked at that one specific item, because her and I were talking about the beach a little bit, and she mentioned the one item as far as the playground.
Okay.
I know
She
what
did
he's-
not mention I know the swale that you're talking of. I know that, but I haven't really looked at the drainage pattern. Maybe next time it rains, which will be
If you call, we'll go
within
down
the
with
next
you.
within the next day or two, so
Yeah, right.
I'll try to take a look at it.
We'll go with you if you're around. Give us-
Anything else?
We will be making the C-SLAP report available online on the town website, and I have another one.
Okay.
The
No,
old,
that's the vegetation.
well, yeah, another survey, the old Solitude Allied Biological, so that we'll have that as a baseline for this summer's testing.
Okay, great.
And a copy of it's at the library now too, finally.
Yes.
Okay.
So the 2007 vegetation study is now at the library and with the town.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Should we, okay, old and new business. Let's, well, quickly, for the town park renovation, I had asked the garden club to sort of form a committee, figure out what they want to do. They spoke to Thayer, they've spoken to a few people. They're trying to find a real landscape artist, a landscape architect type person to be part of that committee. And that's where that stands right now. So as soon as that happens, they can form a committee and kind of get going on it.
Can I mention one thing?
Yeah.
Just because I brought this up with Dara the other day, I mentioned to Sarah and Matt here, but if we do move forward at some point with John Clark style curb extensions and traffic calming, new crosswalks, et cetera, downtown, I believe we've been talking that maybe it doesn't work with them right at the corners, and Don's very upset with the notion of putting curb extension and you lose radiuses for those big trucks. But if we do redesign the downtown, so there's the corner near the light, then there's two other entrances to the park, one towards the old library and the other towards the barber shop. Those are probably roughly areas closer to where the new crosswalks would actually go. The sidewalk as it exists now, between the entrance to the corner on the one side and between that entrance to the corner on the other, essentially might become outmoded should we move forward with that new redesign. And it's an opportunity for considering all the plans at once.
Right.
Just to bear that in mind as we go forward with
Okay.
this committee.
Great, thank you. Something I have heard, so for new business, is there are homeowners who are living along the new school solar array, who, and nobody's here tonight, I don't think, from that group, but they are now, instead of looking out on blue sky or the school, they are looking out on solar panels. They're very upset. They built the solar panels up behind the fencing there, so close that one of the fears expressed was that the fire department can't get in back there to help in case there's a fire. I'm not sure what to do about it, but we have no control over what the school does, to my understanding, but...
Well, under certain things, I don't know that we ever got a straight answer as to whether that solar facility was something that had design approval and construction approval from the Department of Education. If it didn't,
Okay.
then we have jurisdiction over it. And I think this is an issue that was never resolved to my satisfaction. But I thought, I remember the superintendent saying, oh, no, it's controlled by the Department of Education. I'd like to see some documentation on that.
Okay.
And maybe we can ask them for that, the plans that were approved by the department, because they do preempt the local municipality, but only for certain aspects of school construction. And I never thought that fit into what they usually would approve. And if it turns out it is within our jurisdiction, then maybe we can take some action. Did you ever look into that? Was that, did they ever provide anything to them? It's a massive
big
They're
project.
upset, they're very upset by what's out their back windows, and I don't blame them.
I don't blame them.
Yeah. Okay, great, I'll look into trying to get that.
That's why we have, a solar law, or we're going to have a solar law to
About
control,
that.
I mean, that's an industrial size, commercial size solar facility. And you
Okay,
can see
great.
what the problem, and we're having problems in other jurisdictions that I represent with regard to people complaining about specific projects. So we're trying to address that in our law.
Is there any sense to engaging the superintendent or the school board? Probably not.
I don't know. He kind of is dismissive when you talk to him. Drew, is it something you could inquire?
I can inquire. Is it something we can foil?
Yeah, exactly. Why don't we
You
foil?
can foil the New York State Ed Department. I was just looking.
Oh, we can get it from the ed. We probably get it quicker from the ed department than we would
Right.
from the.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could foil the. Just get the FOIL office for the New York State Department of Education.
And I'm just looking online under the New York State Ed website for project status.
Got anything there?
Unfortunately, it doesn't specifically identify that project.
How
So
far back does that go?
This dates back to projects 2014
Yeah, it just got built.
to the current. Yeah, but it gives an update on all, even the current capital projects and so
Yeah,
forth.
I'm
But-
wondering
But if
whether-
it was looped together with another project, it doesn't specifically identify it as a solar project or anything of that nature.
Does that kind of a project have to have to have a secret review?
Well, they would be subject to secret review.
But
yeah.
they may have conducted it, and they
But
may
they
not
may
have
have-
done
yeah.
a coordinated review. They
Yeah,
may
we wouldn't
done
have, they wouldn't have, they may not have included us, because they might have considered it a type 2, unlisted action, so they didn't do a coordinated
But there
review.
would be a secret review.
There's always got to be
Yeah, that's what I thought.
some secret determination. I mean, there are exempt actions, but that's not one of them.
Okay, thank you all.
So they must have done the secret. It's not an exempt action. How could they not have communicated?
Well, we don't know. I mean,
We don't know if they did.
We don't know, because I raised this issue a while back,
Okay.
and I think Handler was here when
Yeah, he
and I
did.
think he kind of treated it with the back of his hand.
Maybe they didn't do secret. Why?
But you can see, it's a good object lesson for the committee that's working on the solar law to see what the problems can be with these things if they're not properly regulated.
Yeah. We're almost ready to send it to you.
Okay.
Or our ideas. Great, thank you. The next piece of business is a request from Little Nine Partners Historical Society. Diane's here representing them, and I gave you all this letter, but I'll just read it fast. The Society seeks to document our community history and share that history with the community. The Society presently serves as town historian. Over the past several years, we've seen several historic buildings torn down with no regard for a review of their history. While it would be great if these structures could be preserved or adaptively reused, we feel at a minimum they need to be documented by the town historian with photographs and a cursory construction history review. There needs to be enough time allowed in the demolition permit process to facilitate this documentation. We therefore believe the town code needs to be amended to require a demolition permit that includes a 30 to 60-day period to facilitate research and documentation, including photographs and inspection inside and out by the town historian and any historical experts that might assist in our efforts. These regulations need to have strong enforcement provisions so that if someone destroys a structure without proper permits and before they've been documented, they pay a hefty fine. We have another letter that I attached from Scott Chase, basically in support of that, with a little more stringently put. He's suggesting 60 to 90 days. My initial reaction to this was that if somebody bought a property and decided to take a house down, 30 to 90 days, how does that affect the owner? I like the idea of asking for documentation of an historic building. I think that's kind of terrific. I was worried about that time period and about...
We talked about that.
That's something that you guys would do that work, or would it be the town doing that work?
That would be us doing it as town historian.
So would it be all structures?
And any people that we wanted to know.
What if things are in like a terrible state? It wouldn't matter.
Structures that we feel have some historic significance that we deem having historic significance. So it wouldn't be any structure.
Right. So why not in the past hasn't the Historical Society been the group that follows through with that, the inventory of historical properties in town and the creation of the historical districts? It seems weird to force it to be done at the moment of the sale rather than having a framework in place that accommodates.
Well, couldn't you be doing that now though too? Like you already know what the historic buildings in and around here are that you might want to be documented. So why couldn't you just reach out to the current homeowners
I guess I'm imagining it
and ask them if you could photograph their house and do some research on their house? Or are you actually looking to stop the demolition process?
Do the inventory of historical properties, then you know if it is or isn't. You don't have to
There is a
find
feeling
out.
that it would be nice to change the culture and maybe move in that direction, that what historic preservation becomes something that the town supports, that it's not just the Historical Society as town historian saying this, that it's the town is really behind us on this. And I know the town of Clinton has done a lot in this area of historic preservation and having a process of, where they protect homes from being demolished without any regard to their history.
Parameters, I guess, that you would make a home historic. So some are and some aren't. How would an individual know?
I don't know. Personally, I don't think we've really delved into this deeply. This is something that we've just become really alarmed over because of the recent number of historic structures that have disappeared. But so, I think there definitely needs to be more thought put into this on our end. But I think
it's not just the age of the building, it might be how it's been used, how it might have contributed to the history of the town in some way. So there's several criteria that we would use to
But if the building's too far gone, are you expecting that homeowner to pony up that money to, A, if he buys it, wants to tear it down, but if they can't, but are you expecting them to preserve it and maintain it themselves?
I don't know at this point, but I think a lot of these have been just to take them off the tax rolls.
So nothing that's happened in the last year or the year before, but in maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago?
No, in the past year.
There is one just recently.
I have proposed that we adopt legislation along these lines. It is not to require someone to keep a house, it's that we have an opportunity to document the historical value of a house before it's torn down. And most of the people who buy these properties and are ready to tear them down have resources and can wait for 60 to 90 days.
What are we doing now to document houses historical?
Nothing.
So why is this what we're waiting? Why is this the moment?
It does seem strange to do it now though, before they go on the market. Like, why can't we find the historical homes, and why can't we reach out to them now and document them, picture them, instead of it going for sale and then being change of hands?
But it's not just for sale. You could own the property for 20 years and decide to take
Okay,
an
but I
historic
mean,
building
then,
down.
but if they start looking at historical buildings now that they want to document.
It's a delay. You're talking about a delay for someone to be permitted to do that.
Let me just weigh in on it.
Yes, please.
I'd have to look at our code. I don't remember whether we have a historic properties provision in our code, but most municipalities do.
I don't think we do.
And it's very simple. There are prototypes all over the place. I just drafted one for Rhinebeck, which expanded our historic property so that we created an historic properties advisory committee, so that when the planning board makes a decision on a property for a special use permit or a site plan review, it will go to this committee, which will have a number of people that have some expertise and interest in historic properties.
And they determine at that point only
No.
whether it's historic, or they determine before?
No, the town has an inventory of historic property.
So the inventory is what needs
when
to
have. When you create the historic, most towns have a historic demolition law. I'm surprised that we don't, but because I've never dealt with one before here. But it's very easy to pass because almost every municipality has the same law, and that's a different law. So when you want to demolish or substantially alter a historic property, and there are guidelines for determining what gets on the inventory of historic properties, National Register of Historic Places. It could be eligible for registration on the National Register. It could be a contributing property. There are different standards, and it's all put in the law. And the municipality does an inventory, prepares that, so you have that all in place. So if a property is on that list, and it may be in our comprehensive plan, it may be that they did an inventory in our comprehensive plan.
People ask for more preservation at the meeting.
But that doesn't hold them up. Then they have to come in and get a demolition permit, and almost every municipality has one. So that's not an unusual or onerous requirement. 60 to 90 days seems a little long. Usually it's 30 to 60 days that the time period is for doing it.
But in the absence of an inventory, it couldn't happen.
You have to have an inventory because you can't do it on an ad hoc basis. Right. And people have to have an opportunity to challenge whether they want to be on the list or not. If you put somebody on a list, which means that if they want to demolish their property, they have to come in and get a special permit from the planning board. You have to give them an opportunity to demonstrate that they may not be, the property shouldn't be on that list for one reason or another. And it can get carried to extremes. I've been involved in some of those. So I think the town, I could give you examples of what most municipalities have. If you look at them, they're almost all the same. Like Rhinebeck Village, Rhinebeck Town, Red Hook, they all have pretty much the same law. So it wouldn't be a complex process to adopt that. But you would have to, as part of that, you're going to have to establish an inventory, which may be Historical Society could do, or we could appoint the committee. It's not a terribly difficult process.
It takes a while, though.
It takes a while.
Ancrum just completed it. It took them
Yeah.
4 or 5 years to complete their
Shouldn't take
inventory.
that long, really that long.
It took them quite a while. I don't know why.
But we haven't, you said we haven't
No, we do have a few things that began several years ago. You guys were approached with the idea of starting a historic district that was not a zoning.
Yeah, I thought we got some
That was
funding
a
for
historic
that or
district,
something.
And that's a different kind of thing.
But that's what, to do that process is the process through which you go to establish the inventory of historical properties. So you might choose to not have an historic district, but that survey and inventory would tell you where they are, and if there's a lot of them in one place, you might
If you
say.
hear about it, you can have both, but we need to start. I think you need to start on this. And I agree with Diane that you want to change the culture about how people feel about their environment and how they value the heritage that we have here.
Adopt something along the lines of this letter. In the meantime, we'll start working on an inventory.
So Warren can send us examples
I'll send
from
you some
other
examples,
towns, and we'll just take
I'll
like
show you
something
what
like that.
we're
where it's
doing, and
already
it hasn't been
written up.
approved yet. I don't know if that's going to go through but we're not establishing historic districts, but you can have a confluence of historic properties that you can create a mini district, and that's part of the process. But if you look at the comprehensive plan, I would imagine they did an inventory. There must be something in the comprehensive plan about it, no? Yeah.
It's not a real inventory.
I have a few things in my
Durst
car
did an
that
inventory
were
before they
leftover
took all the
documents from this
buildings
previous effort, I guess 4 or 5
Yeah.
years ago,
I mean-
if you wanted to look at them.
I mean, it really is, you really should have, that's a good law to have in place.
I
It
think
really
so.
is, yeah.
I thought so for a long time.
Yeah,
So
especially
start,
for
will you
community
start an
like this.
inventory and we'll try to get something?
We'll start working on it.
I'll send you some prototypes and you can take a look.
That'd be
You'll see,
great.
they're not that onerous, but you have to have a group like the Historical Society that's willing to undertake the research to place these properties on a list.
Then the planning board would know, and
Wonderful, thank you for
they would be
coming
the
in.
body
Thank
that
you.
refers
Thank you
them
very
further.
much.
Well, they would have to come to the planning board for a demolition permit
Yeah.
for an historic property. And usually that's 30 to 60 day
And that would
process.
trigger potentially a call to
Well,
Diane or
you would
whoever.
probably refer it to either the committee that you establish or the historical committee that could fulfill that function, because the planning board doesn't have the expertise necessarily to deal with historic
Eileen
structure.
Yagure told me the other night that she has in fact helped create a zoning overlay district, historical district somewhere. She didn't say the name of the town.
They're all,
But she had done the work of the inventory. She knew that work.
Yeah.
Eileen Yagure, who is
They own the
the
Pines.
Pines.
Oh, yeah, okay.
But she, I think, would be a resource too if she
That
has
would-
gone
yes,
through that
yes,
inventory
yes, that
process.
would be
yeah,
good.
that's the hardest part.
That's a
The
good
law is
resource.
pretty easy to adopt.
Right.
I mean, that wouldn't be a problem. But I think it would be a good thing for
We also need to
them.
be sure that there are demolition permits issued, because my understanding is that the building that was taken down on County Route 83 never got a demolition permit.
Who issued the permit?
No, there wasn't a permit issue.
Huh?
There wasn't a permit issue for that house.
That was a barn or a garage?
I think it was Linus' old
It
house.
was the old one.
Yeah, it was the house.
Oh, right there.
Yeah, right by the
Oh.
bridge.
It's gone.
See, can I just say something? Here, it's not just the building, okay? Hunt Winans was a really important figure in agriculture to a lot of people. There are a lot of people around who could give testimony to that, okay? The same thing I documented, the Dutch Schultz thing. We didn't get any help from the community or the Historical Society. And we let these things.
No, you're right.
slip.
Yeah, and one of the standards in the one I just created for Rhinebeck, which goes a little bit farther in creating this committee and this extra level of oversight, it's not just the building. It's properties that are associated with historical character or a prominent figure in them. They could be eligible also. So I'll show it to you. You'll take a look at it.
Okay, great. Thank you. The very last thing I wanted to say tonight was a inadequate and enormous thank you to Stan Herson for taping our town board meetings and planning board meetings and comprehensive plan meetings all these years.
This is our last meeting taped by Stan Herson. We are beyond grateful. We were out ahead of everyone else in taping our meetings and being a town with such open democracy that we showed what we were doing to this level. And thank you so much, Stan.
We made this meeting really, really
I was
long.
just gonna say, 2 hours and 40 minutes isn't bad for a last one,
We're
right?
not executive session yet.
I would like to go into executive session, but I have a...
So moved?
Second?
And invite, Ray is invited.
Regarding
We're regarding 2 contractual issues.